Chapter 2803 God's Domain's Strongest. He died. A Tier 4 NPC died just like that? When the spectating players saw Sabred's dead body, they couldn't help doubting their eyes. Some of them even thought that the NPC was only playing dead and hadn't actually been killed. Bloodoath, standing by the entrance, also felt that the scene before him was fake. Sabred was the vice commander of one of Dragonheart City's powerful knight legions. He stood at the peak among Tier 4 existences. How could he possibly have been killed by a player? Of the spectating players present, the only ones who remained relatively calm at this situation were Lifeless Thorn, Solitary 9, and Yuluo. They didn't find it particularly surprising that Feng had killed Sabred. After all, Feng had already reached level 140. For Tier 4 existences, a 20-level gap wasn't much of a difference. However, the three of them had never imagined that Feng would be able to kill Sabred so cleanly. The attack he used to injure Sabred heavily was especially amazing. If not for that attack, the fight between the two would have lasted much longer. Unlike Lifeless Thorn's trio, Divine Shadow and Cleansing Flame had their mouths fall wide open when they saw this scene. Their minds clearly failed to process what had just happened. While everyone was struggling to accept this scene, reality poured a bucket of cold water over them. The next moment, several items actually appeared around Sabred's corpse. Of them, one was even the greatsword Sabred used. The greatsword hovered in the air, radiating an unparalleled aura. Upon being subjected to this aura, many of the Tier 2 players felt an instinctive fear overwhelming their bodies. Only the Tier 3 players fared better. A fragmented legendary weapon. Nobody knew who shouted this sentence. However, it snapped everyone out of their daze, and they couldn't help ogling the snowy white weapon with glowing eyes. Some players even had the urge to charge forward and snatch it. However, before anyone could step forward, Feng had already arrived beside Sabred's body, the aura he radiated scaring everyone into retreating. The pressure Feng gave off was simply too powerful. Even though he had already retracted his mana domain, everyone still felt stifled, none of them daring to look him in the eye. As for the fragmented legendary weapon, none of the players present dared entertain any thoughts of it now. After all, Feng had just killed a level 160 Tier 4 NPC. A single thought from him was probably more than enough to kill players like themselves. For a time, the tens of thousands of players and NPCs standing in the vicinity quietly watched Feng collect the items Sabred dropped one after another. If I can become like him one day, my life would be complete. Let alone becoming like him, I can most likely walk around Dragonheart Island fearlessly with even half of his strength. As the adventurer team players spectating the fight from the distant port watched Feng collect Sabred's loot, a sense of yearning and admiration awoke in their hearts. They also grew excited beyond words. The fact that Feng had managed to slay a Tier 4 NPC right in front of Dragonheart City, a large neutral city, definitely made him God's Domain's strongest player. In fact, most likely, nobody would believe them even if they described this scene to others. Nonetheless, they had managed to witness this miraculous feat. How could their blood not boil in this situation? However, amid everyone's excitement, Feng suddenly disappeared. Before anyone realized it, Feng had already reappeared in front of Bloodoath, catching Bloodoath and the three peak experts protecting him off guard. "Commander Bloodoath, we meet again," Feng said with a faint smile. "I'm sure you know why I came here." Although Feng spoke in a calm tone and was even smiling, Bloodoath and the others paled as if they had just seen a ghost. "Black Flame, you'd best not mess around." Doing his best to calm his anxious heart, Bloodoath glared at Feng and added in a low tone, "This is already inside Dragonheart City. Moreover, now that you've killed Sabred, neither Dragonheart City nor Secret Hand will spare you. If you know what's good for you, you'd best leave now. You'll be dead once the City Lord or the City Defense Legion's commander arrives." On Dragonheart Island, players would suffer entirely different penalties depending on whether they had fought inside or outside Dragonheart City. The fight with Sabred had been outside the city. Hence, even though Feng had killed Sabred, the penalty he would suffer wouldn't be particularly severe. After all, the area outside the city wasn't subject to the city's protections. Even if a fight took place right outside the city's entrance, the city's NPC soldiers would at most move to stop the fight. They wouldn't detain the offenders at all. This was also why Sabret and the other NPC soldiers dared take the initiative to persecute Feng's group before. However, Blood Oath's current position was inside Dragonheart City. If Feng killed him now, the severity of his crimes would be on a whole other level. Is that so? Smiling, Feng unsheathed the abyssal blade and brandished it. 3 sword lights shot out from his weapon and instantly plundered the lives of the 3 peak experts standing around Blood Oath. Even when their bodies hit the ground, none of the 3 had realized what had happened. Feng then turned to Blood Oath and asked, "What about now? You? How dare you?" Blood Oath was thunderstruck when he saw his 3 subordinates killed. Everyone else in the vicinity also saw this scene without missing a detail. Crap. Awesome. This is awesome. Black Flame. He must be Black Flame, right? He actually killed 3 of Warblood's peak experts right in front of Blood Oath. And Blood Oath doesn't even dare make any strange moves. Am I dreaming? Everyone felt their blood boil with excitement when they looked at Blood Oath, who dared not move a muscle in front of Feng. Their worship of Feng rose to a whole new level. Blood Oath was known throughout God's domain. After all, he was a big shot that even the superpowers had to submit to on Dragonheart Island, an existence standing at the peak of Dragonheart Island. Nonetheless, Blood Oath looked no different from an ant in front of Feng. This situation was simply crazy. It was so crazy that they couldn't even react to it. However, shortly after the crowd began bubbling with excitement, 3 figures suddenly descended from the sky and landed at the entrance. Every one of these figures exuded an aura much stronger than that of Sabret. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Upon seeing these figures, Blood Oath reacted as if he had seen his savior. He looked at Feng and laughed. "Black Flame, you are finished. Now that the Vice City Lord and 2 Knight Commanders have arrived, you shouldn't even think of leaving this place alive." One of the 3 new arrivals was none other than Cruz, Dragonheart City's Vice City Lord. He was a level 180 Tier 4 Great Wizard, a big shot standing at the top of God's domain. According to rumors, he was only half a step away from Tier 5, and could even contend against demon princes of the same level. As for the 2 other figures, one of them was Sheraviria, the commander of the Holy Star Knight Legion and one of the World Tower's protectors. She was a bona fide level 200 Tier 5 Great Holy Knight. The last person was Landrek, the commander of the City Defense Knight Legion. He was a level 180 Tier 4 Sword Emperor. Although he was the weakest among the group of 3, he was still significantly stronger than Sabret. This was because Landrek owned Earth and Glory, a genuine legendary spear. With this weapon, he was fully capable of contending with Tier 5 existences of the same level. With these 3 NPCs around, even a Tier 5 player wouldn't be able to escape. Chapter 2804. Difference in status. Why did all these big shots show up? The players present gasped when they saw Cruz, Sheraviria, and Landrek at the entrance. They never thought that Feng's fight would attract so many NPC powerhouses. After all, players normally couldn't meet even one of these big shots. Nevertheless, 3 of them now appeared. Protector Sheraviria, in particular, was one of the apex powerhouses of God's domain. In the absence of Tier 6 gods, she would be part of the strongest group of existences. This was because not only was Sheraviria a Tier 5 NPC, but she even owned 2 legendary items, the Galaxy Sword and Bulwark of Light. She had slain dozens of demon kings, elven royalty, and void demons before. Even if a Tier 5 player existed now, they would simply be seeking death if they tried challenging her. The next moment, Blood Oath walked up to Vice City Lord Cruz's side quickly, then pointed at Feng and said respectfully, "Lord Vice City Lord, not only did this ruffian kill Vice Commander Sabret, but he even killed my companions inside the city. You must punish this ruffian and protect Dragonheart City's order." Blood Oath spoke in a sonorous and powerful voice, his words echoing throughout the entrance. It sounded as if he was pronouncing the death sentence on Feng. Upon seeing the arrival of the 3 NPCs, Inkfeather breathed out a deep sigh of relief. When she looked at Feng again, a hint of glee appeared in her eyes. "Let's see how you get out of this situation." When the other players present saw this scene, they couldn't help shaking their heads dejectedly. With 3 of Dragonheart City's NPC powerhouses here, it was most likely impossible for Feng to escape with his life. Just when everyone thought another battle would break out, Cruz, the white-bearded old man standing beside Blood Oath, spoke up. A dragon slayer. I never thought I would get to see one in my lifetime, and such a young one at that, Cruz said, a faint smile appearing on his face. It seems times are changing. The Vice City Lord's words rendered everyone present stunned and confused. What dragon slayer? Blood Oath was similarly stunned by Cruz's words. He couldn't figure out what the Vice City Lord was getting at. Instead of punishing Feng as soon as possible, the NPC brought up the topic of Dragon Slayer out of nowhere. Just what was this NPC trying to do? You overpraise me, Lord Vice City Lord. Turning to look at Cruz, Feng said, my friends and I just got lucky to slay a dragon that had yet to enter adulthood. No. A dragon is a dragon. Your accomplishment of slaying a Tier 4 infant dragon while being at Tier 4 yourself is something even Lady Shara never achieved, Cruz countered, shaking his head. If not for you, Lady Shara wouldn't have left the World Tower to come here in person. Cruz's words left Blood Oath dumbfounded. Shara actually came here not because Feng had killed Sabrid but merely to take a look at Feng? At this time, let alone Blood Oath, most of the other players nearby were stupefied as well. What was going on with this situation? When Divine Shadow and Cleansing Flame saw this scene, they were at a complete loss for words. They felt as if they were living in a completely different world from Feng. Not only had Feng killed the City Defense Legion's vice commander, but he also had subsequently killed 3 of Warblood's peak experts inside the city. Nevertheless, Dragonheart City's Vice City Lord was chatting with him, as if none of these offenses had ever occurred. At this time among the spectating players, only Lifeless Thorn Solitary 9, and Yuluo knew why this was happening. The Dragon Slayer title wasn't just a title. It symbolized the accomplishment of a legendary feat in God's domain. With this title, no matter which NPC city one visited, one would enjoy a status close to that of the City Lord. For someone with such a status, killing a couple of provocateurs wouldn't be a problem at all. The only reason Sabrid had dared act rudely to Feng was his low standard, which prevented him from seeing through the Black Cloak's concealment effects. Otherwise, let alone provoking Feng, he wouldn't even have dared speak casually around Feng, knowing that Feng was a dragon slayer. After glancing at Lifeless Thorn and the other 2 Tier 4 players standing at a distance, Shara turned to Feng and asked softly, Young Dragon Slayer, are you and your companions willing to serve as the Holy Star Legion's honorary knights? Honorary knights? The Holy Knight's words caught Feng slightly off guard. However, a moment later, he replied without hesitation, It is our honor. In an NPC Knight Legion, the position of honorary knight was second only to the position of commander. In the absence of the commander, an honorary knight even had the authority to mobilize the legion. Moreover, despite not being bound to the Knight Legion, an honorary knight would still enjoy various privileges and benefits from the Knight Legion. Meanwhile, the Holy Star Knight Legion was the Knight Legion tasked with protecting the World Tower. Compared to other Knight Legions, one could gain even more benefits as an honorary knight of the Holy Star Knight Legion. In the past, countless Tier 4 and Tier 5 experts had sought to join the Holy Star Legion. However, due to the Legion's strict requirements, less than 10% of the Tier 4 experts had gotten chosen and become an official member of the Legion, let alone becoming an honorary knight. Hence, the fact that Shara was offering to let them become honorary knights greatly exceeded Feng's expectations. Good. You are now members of the Holy Star Knight Legion. Fight to protect the rules of the World Tower. Shara nodded approvingly as she looked at Feng. You can head to the World Tower to collect your honorary badge afterward. As soon as Shara finished speaking, she vanished from everyone's sight. Blood Oath was dumbfounded by this situation. He never thought that Shara had come here just to meet Feng. Moreover, she hadn't even mentioned a single word about Sabrid, as if Sabrid was merely an insignificant insect. Before Blood Oath could snap out of his daze, Vice City Lord Cruz walked up to Feng. Congratulations, young Dragon Slayer, Cruz said happily. It has been 50 years since Lady Shara last conferred the Holy Star Legion's honorary knight position to anyone. Even Commander Landrek is still challenging for that position. Upon seeing Cruz speaking with Feng so amicably, the surrounding players felt their worldviews fragmenting. They simply couldn't figure out what exactly Feng had done to garner the appreciation of these NPC powerhouses, so much so that they even ignored the killing of Sabret, the City Defense Legion's vice commander. The next moment, just as Bloodoath was about to say something, Feng cut him off, saying, "Lord Cruz, when my companions and I were trying to enter the city before, this person here accused me of being suspicious and instigated Vice Commander Sabret to provoke my group. May I know if it is possible to imprison him as punishment?" Black Flame. "You're slandering me." Bloodoath panicked at Feng's words. Hurriedly, he explained, "I have done no such thing. It was Lord Sabret himself who decided to do so. The people around us can testify for me." At this time, Bloodoath already understood that Vice City Lord Cruz had no intention whatsoever of pursuing Feng for Sabret's murder. Moreover, now that Feng had gained a very high position in Dragonheart City, if Bloodoath did not withdraw from this place immediately, he would definitely suffer. "Do you mean that I, an honorary knight of the Holy Star Legion, am lying?" Feng asked, smiling as he looked at Bloodoath. As soon as Feng finished speaking, Cruz nodded and looked at Bloodoath. He then said sternly, "Regardless of whether your words are true or false, you have slandered one of the Holy Star Legion's honorary knights. For this offense, you will be imprisoned for 15 days as punishment." "No, this is unfair." He clearly attacked first. Bloodoath was startled by this turn of events. He never thought that Feng would play such a hand. However, it was useless to resist. Glaring at Feng, he bellowed, "Black Flame, I'll make you pay for this. The Secret Hand Association won't let you off either. Get out of prison first, then talk." Smiling nonchalantly, Feng said, "Rest assured, once you get out, everything outside would have already ended." The Secret Hand Association indeed possessed a lot of Tier 4 NPCs. On the other hand, he was no pushover either. This was especially true now that he was an honorary knight of the Holy Star Knight Legion. The association would have to think twice before they tried anything against him. The Holy Star Knight Legion was both the manager and protector of the World Tower. The Secret Hand Association would be suicidal to attack him inside the World Tower. As for Dragonheart Island's surrounding sea zones, he rarely visited these areas normally. At most, he would be sailing by. Moreover, once the seal on Dragonheart Island was lifted, he could outright teleport to and from the island. Before Bloodoath could say anything more, a squad of level 160 soldiers came and escorted him away. How ruthless! Is this the status and influence Tier 4 powerhouses possess? Tier 4. I must get promoted to Tier 4. So this is Zero Wing's Black Flame? He's even more amazing than the rumors. I wonder if Zero Wing is recruiting Tier 2 players? If I can join such a guild, I won't have to worry about anything in Dragonheart City. When the surrounding players saw NPC soldiers bundling off Dragonheart Island's most feared man, they were taken aback by Feng's capabilities. They also understood why Feng had not killed Bloodoath outright. Compared to the penalty of dying once, the consequences of getting imprisoned for 15 days were much more severe. This was especially true now that Feng had gained such a high status in Dragonheart City. For him, 15 days was more than enough to bring down the Warblood adventurer team. Meanwhile, all Bloodoath could do was watch as all of this happened. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. At this time, everyone present could already foresee Zero Wing standing at the peak of Dragonheart Island. Our problem has been resolved. After watching Bloodoath getting taken away, Feng returned to Divine Shadow and the others. Smiling, he said, "We can enter Dragonheart City now." In response, Divine Shadow and Cleansing Flame nodded their heads stiffly. Even now, they still found it difficult to believe what had happened. Just a moment ago, Warblood had been at the apex of its power. Yet, with only a few words from Feng, it now faced the threat of dissolution. Meanwhile, news of this situation spread like wildfire. In only a matter of minutes, it entered the ears of everyone in Dragonheart City. The news caused an especially large commotion among the city's various guilds and adventurer teams. Chapter 2805 Fame Shakes Dragonheart City. What did you say? Black Flame killed a Tier 4 NPC and even got Bloodoath imprisoned for 15 days? When the various guilds and adventurer teams operating in Dragonheart City heard of Feng's miraculous feat, they were thunderstruck. They repeatedly pressed the reporting personnel for confirmation regarding the validity of this information. As if having expected such a reaction, the reporting personnel promptly sent a battle video of Feng killing Saber to their respective superiors, as well as videos of Feng killing 3 of Warblood's peak experts right in front of Blood Oath and of NPC soldiers dragging Blood Oath off to prison. Dragonheart City Bloodstone Bar. A group of level 123 plus, Tier 3 experts had gathered in this bar. Of the group, even the weakest person was at the Refinement Realm standard. There were also more than a dozen peak experts and 4 apex experts. Meanwhile, seated at the head of this group was none other than Elder Wu, one of 13 Thrones' founders. "Thousand, are you sure this information is correct?" Elder Wu couldn't help feeling skeptical as he read the report from a woman shrouded in a layer of black mist. This was because Thousand Lives' report was simply too astonishing. After all, the reason their group was currently operating so secretively was War Blood. Nevertheless, Elder Wu was being told that War Blood was finished. Moreover, its destruction was due entirely to Zero Wing's guild leader, Black Flame. How could he possibly believe this? It is 100% true. Many powers already have designs on Warblood's territory. If not for Warblood still retaining some contact with Secret Hand, they would have most likely taken action already, Thousand Lives insisted in a determined tone. Moreover, according to the information I collected, Heaven's Blade appears to have formed a close relationship with Black Flame. If Zero Wing has Heaven's Blade's full support, I'm afraid it won't be long before Zero Wing occupies a significant portion of Dragonheart City's various resources. What is Black Flame thinking? He actually has the leisure to come to Dragonheart City? Is he not worried about the deteriorating situation over at the Twin Towers Kingdom? Elder Wu, who wore a somewhat haggard expression, was surprised by Thousand Lives' words. Simultaneously, he was confused as to how Feng had grown so terrifying this rapidly. The fact that Feng had killed a Tier 4 NPC without any repercussions and imprisoned Blood Oath, with just a few words proved that he already stood at the top of Dragonheart City in terms of status. He was now in existence that Dragonheart City's various powers had to look up to. Yet, according to Elder Wu's information, Zero Wing's operations over at the Twin Towers Kingdom were in dire straits. At this stage of the game, complete Tier 3 legacies were of utmost importance to the various superpowers. These legacies would allow them to go up against the NPC forces. Hence, over 20 superpowers were currently harassing Zero Wing's operations in the Twin Towers Kingdom with peak experts every day. While these superpowers were going up against the alliance of Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor at Sky Spring City, they had also dispatched many members to head to the Secret Covenant Tower from the neighboring NPC cities. To prevent these players from flooding into the Secret Covenant Tower, Zero Wing's alliance had stationed a large number of personnel on the routes to the tower. Thus far, battles between both sides involving over 100,000 players had already occurred 5 times, while battles involving several tens of thousands of players had occurred more than 20 times. In the most recent battle, Starlink and Miracle had even joined in the fray and dispatched a total of 4 Tier 4 experts. Fortunately, Zero Wing's side had dispatched 3 Tier 4 experts to counter. One of them was the commander of Zero Wing's main force, Fire Dance, one was Unyielding Soul's vice guild leader Unyielding Heart, and one was Crimson Emperor's vice guild leader Illusory Words. As for Black Flame, he was nowhere to be seen. In regard to this situation, everyone was confused as to why Black Flame sat out this battle. This battle had thoroughly shaken the entire God's domain. It was the first one involving multiple Tier 4 experts since God's domain's launch. By the end of this battle, a large portion of the glacial lake plain, where the conflict took place, had been reduced to a barren wasteland. Although the fight had ended in Zero Wing's victory, if not for Zero Wing's powerful war weapons, such as the Crimson Dragon flying ships, combat puppets, and advanced barriers, the outcome would have been different. Moreover, the increasing rampancy of NPC forces had forced the various superpowers to conserve a significant portion of their forces. However, Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor were no longer in a good state. The 3 guilds had suffered tremendous losses due to the protracted war. This was especially true for Zero Wing. After all, unlike Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor, Zero Wing had no background to rely on whatsoever. Knowing this, the various superpowers had also put in a lot of effort to whittle Zero Wing to death as quickly as possible. The actions the various superpowers took included poaching Zero Wing's experts and cutting off Zero Wing's income sources. Zero Wing's loss of income sources in the real world had put the guild in an especially difficult position. Most importantly, the various superpowers had also blocked Zero Wing's equipment and material sources. Although it wasn't a complete embargo, the various superpowers had jacked up the prices of equipment and materials to absurd levels. Now, just producing a piece of level 120 mysterious iron equipment cost 30 gold coins. If it were before, 30 gold would already have been more than enough to produce a piece of level 120 secret silver equipment. In addition, the various superpowers also purchased all of the level 110 plus secret silver equipment and above from the market, leaving nothing for Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor. After the many battles fought, the equipment stockpile of the three guilds should already be bottoming out. Meanwhile, without good weapons and equipment, how were their members supposed to fight? A player fully equipped in secret silver equipment would have more than a 20% advantage in basic attributes over a player fully equipped in mysterious iron equipment. Needless to say, the gap with players fully equipped in fine gold equipment would be even greater. Moreover, without proper weapons and equipment, the three guilds members would also have more difficulty grinding in the secret Covenant Tower. At this time, Thousand Lives suddenly received a message from one of her subordinates. After reading it, she said, "I just received insider information from War Blood. It seems Black Flame's actions have affected even Secret Hand's control over the World Tower. So Secret Hand plans to teach Black Flame a lesson. However, since Secret Hand can't do anything against him on Dragonheart Island, it plans on partnering with Starlink to wipe out Zero Wing's forces in the Twin Towers Kingdom." Interesting. Black Flame really knows how to cause trouble. However, this is also a good opportunity for 13 Thrones. A good opportunity? Thousand Lives parroted, confused by Elder Wu's words. Looking at Thousand Lives and the male ranger standing beside her, Elder Wu said, "Thousand Rain, you two follow me. Everyone else, continue resting here and wait for our return." "Yes, sir." Everyone responded respectfully. Afterward, Elder Wu secretly left the Bloodstone Bar together with Thousand Lives and Modern Rain. "Elder Wu, where are we going? Shouldn't we be heading to the 4th underground floor as planned?" Thousand Lives asked curiously as she looked at the pleasantly smiling Elder Wu. "We won't be going there for now. We have something more important to do," Elder Wu replied. "Something more important?" Having thought of something, Thousand Lives asked in surprise, "Are we going to partner with Zero Wing?" "Partner?" Shaking his head, Elder Wu said, "We don't need to partner with Zero Wing. We will just be giving Zero Wing an opportunity to defend the secret Covenant Tower." "Defend the secret Covenant Tower? How is that possible?" Thousand Lives couldn't help doubting Elder Wu's words. It might be fine if Starlink and the various superpowers were the only ones targeting Zero Wing. However, the situation was different now that the Secret Hand Association had joined the fray. At that time, who knew how many Tier 4 NPCs the association would send to deal with Zero Wing? With the forces Zero Wing currently had in the Twin Towers Kingdom, defending the secret Covenant Tower would be utterly impossible. Seeing Thousand Lives' doubt, Elder Wu smiled and asked, "But what if Zero Wing has a city building order?" "Elder Wu, do you plan on selling that city building order to Zero Wing?" Realization immediately dawned upon Thousand Lives. The city building order was an incredibly rare item. Thus far, even 13 Thrones had managed to acquire only 2. And as the guild had already used one of these 2 orders, it only had one left. With the city building order, players could construct a guild city in any kingdom or empire they wished. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. If Zero Wing could establish a guild city right beside the secret Covenant Tower, then its ability to control the tower would increase significantly. Combined with its Tier 4 combatants, Zero Wing would have a much better chance of defending the tower. "Whether I sell it or not will depend on Zero Wing's sincerity," Elder Wu said, smiling. Upon hearing Elder Wu's words, Thousand Lives shook her head and smiled. At the same time, she also pitied Feng slightly. Since Elder Wu grasped Zero Wing's lifeline, he would definitely take a huge bite out of Zero Wing. This was especially true now that Feng stood at the apex of Dragonheart City. "Elder Wu, according to our investigation, Black Flame is currently inside that wanderer's shop," Modern Rain said as he pointed at a tattered, Three-story shop some distance ahead. Good. We'll go meet with guild leader Black Flame now. Elder Wu nodded. He then made his way to the Wanderer's shop together with Thousand Lives and Modern Rain. Chapter 2806. The Astonishing Zero-Wing Dragonheart City, Wanderer's Shop. When Elder Wu's group of 3 entered the shop, a magnificent sight instantly entered their eyes. The scenery within the shop was a stark contrast to its dilapidated facade. What's going on here? Thousand Lives was astonished as she inspected the space within the building. This place looks completely different from the last time I visited. On her previous visits to the Wanderer's shop, the building's interior had looked as dilapidated as its exterior. And while the shop sold excellent items, everything here was absurdly priced. If one weren't in a hurry to obtain a specific item, one wouldn't come here to shop. Now, not only had the shop's interior become splendid, but the shop's area had also expanded from a cramped room to half a basketball court. The number of items on display had doubled, and the item quality was drastically better. Now almost everything on display was a precious treasure. Tier 3 magic scrolls. Master potions. Alchemy gold. The alchemy gold, in particular, was a treasure of alchemy. It could increase not only the success rate of forging by 15%, but also the basic attributes of the forged item by 10%. Moreover, it was even effective in the production of epic weapons and equipment. However, alchemy gold was impossible to find on the market. Players could obtain it only from ancient ruins. Alchemy gold was even rarer than epic items. Nevertheless, the Wanderer's shop had a total of 10 ingots of alchemy gold for sale. Moreover, they were only on the first floor right now. The Wanderer's shop had 3 floors, and the value of the products sold in the shop increased with each subsequent floor. In other words, the products on the first floor were the lowest in quality. Rain, take a look around afterward. If you see anything we need, buy it. Elder Wu instructed Modern Rain. When he saw the items sold in the shop, even he was moved. The items sold here were indeed exceedingly expensive, with the cheapest item priced at 20 ancient gold and valuable items like the alchemy gold priced at 1,000 ancient gold. However, most of the items sold here were nigh impossible to purchase in the outside world. Besides, 13 Thrones was in urgent need of items such as alchemy gold. After the major system update, monsters became much more difficult to deal with. Previously, Tier 3 teams could cope with Grand Lord ranked monsters, even with just fine gold weapons and equipment. Now, however, Tier 3 teams needed to be fully equipped in dark gold weapons and equipment. Moreover, the team's MT would need to have 2 or 3 pieces of epic equipment. Otherwise, tanking a Grand Lord would be incredibly tough without help. Needless to say, the requirements for raiding mythic monsters were even higher. Players could no longer rely on just their combat standards to defeat powerful monsters. They also needed epic weapons and equipment to support them. Otherwise, the benefits of exploring level 120+ maps weren't worth the cost. Meanwhile, alchemy gold increased the success rate of producing epic weapons and equipment. In the hands of an advanced master forger, success was almost guaranteed. Moreover, the produced item would also have a 10% boost to its basic attributes. Yes, sir. Modern Rain nodded after snapping out of his daze. Elder Wu's group proceeded to the second floor. And upon seeing the items displayed there, Modern Rain very nearly drooled. This was because the second floor actually sold epic items. Although these epic items weren't weapons or equipment, they were still incredibly rare and useful. Confinement Crystal. Epic consumable. Seals a 2,000-yard radius and lowers the basic attributes of all enemies within the magic array by 40%. 25% for Tier 4, for 2 hours. Wind Manipulating Rope. Epic item. Increases the movement speed of land mounts by 15% and flying mounts by 25%. The display of epic items was simply dizzying. With a single glance, they discovered at least 60 epic items. What rendered them speechless were the prices. Even the cheapest epic item cost 1,500 ancient gold. However, they had to admit that these epic items were all things the various powers desired. Aside from epic items, all sorts of excellent tools required by lifestyle players were also available, such as a set of dark gold alchemy tools. The only problem was that the set cost 5,000 ancient gold. After Elder Wu and the others browsed through the items sold on the second floor, They felt as if they had just walked into a treasure house. Every item on sale here moved their hearts. Unfortunately, the more astonishing an item was, the more astonishing its price was. With just the 60,000 ancient gold they had on hand, they could purchase only a few items from this floor. Just as Elder Wu's group was about to head to the third floor to take a look, a lithe figure suddenly blocked their way. The frightening aura this person exuded instantly subjected Elder Wu and the others to powerful pressure. No outsiders are allowed beyond this point, Yu Luo said softly to Elder Wu's group. If you wish to shop here, you can do so only on the first and second floors. When Thousand Lives and Modern Rain saw Yu Luo, they couldn't help doubting their eyes. Tier 4. A bona fide Tier 4 cleric. Both Thousand Lives and Modern Rain recognized Yu Luo. After all, Yu Luo had been one of Heaven's Blade's team leaders. Simultaneously, she was one of the few peak experts operating on Dragonheart Island. Only they never thought that Yu Luo would get promoted to Tier 4 already. After all, anyone capable of getting promoted to Tier 4 at this stage of the game had the full support of an entire guild. Yet Yu Luo, a cleric who had gone missing 1 month ago, had actually reappeared now as a Tier 4 cleric. This was simply unbelievable. Little Missy, may I know if you are the one running this wanderer's shop? Elder Wu couldn't help asking the question on his mind. No, this shop is run by guild leader Black Flame. I am only managing this place on his behalf, Yu Luo said, shaking her head. Black Flame runs this place? Elder Wu was stunned. In its current magnificent state, the wanderer's shop was most likely worth 1,000,000 ancient gold or more. Elder Wu might have believed it if Heaven's Blade owned this place. After all, Heaven's Blade had been operating on Dragonheart Island for a long time now. However, he was told that Feng actually owned this shop. How could he swallow such a tale? While Elder Wu was stunned, Thousand Lives quickly reacted, asking, "We are from 13 Thrones. We are acquainted with guild leader Black Flame, and we currently have business to discuss with him. Can we meet him now?" "I'm afraid you will have to wait a while," Yu Luo said, shaking her head. Over a dozen of Dragonheart Island's powers are currently discussing business with guild leader Black Flame, so it isn't appropriate for you to enter now. However, you won't have to wait too long either. I believe they will be done in another dozen minutes or so. Over a dozen powers? Elder Wu was slightly surprised. He never thought that so many of Dragonheart Island's powers had already made a move. All right, we'll wait. Elder Wu had expected that some of Dragonheart Island's powers would try to meet with Feng, since Feng was basically the overlord of Dragonheart Island now. It was only natural for guilds and adventurer teams to try to partner with Zero Wing. However, Elder Wu wasn't too worried about these other guilds and adventurer teams. After all, unlike them, 13 Thrones had the city building order, something Zero Wing urgently needed as a bargaining chip. After waiting for around a dozen minutes, Elder Wu's group saw more of Dragonheart Island's local powers arrive, and joined them waiting on the second floor. Among these powers was the Four Saints Society, a super guild that was equal in strength to 13 Thrones, represented by its first vice guild leader, Intoxicated Drunkard. He was a monster with the title of Strongest Shield of the Sea. Unlike other superpowers, though, the Four Saints Society had focused its development entirely on the sea. Its naval strength now rivaled that of the 5 great super guilds. Intoxicated Drunkard's arrival surprised even Elder Wu. However, as the various powers observed each other, Yu Luo, who had been quietly standing guard by the staircase, suddenly said, "Guild leader Black Flame just finished his discussions with the first batch of powers. You may now go upstairs." "Will everyone be going together?" Thousand Lives asked. They wanted to negotiate with Feng in private. A group negotiation was out of the question. That's right. There are too many powers seeking to meet with guild leader Black Flame. Holding private discussions would take too long. Yu Luo nodded. "If you wish to meet with guild leader Black Flame privately, you can return a few days later." "You people." Thousand Lives grew a little angry at Yu Luo's words. They were representatives of 13 Thrones, a super guild. They had already shown plenty of respect by waiting here for over a dozen minutes. Yet, their treatment was no different from what the other powers here received. "Thousand, it doesn't matter. We'll enter together if we have to," Elder Wu said, chuckling. He then continued in a whisper, "Black Flame really knows how to play his cards. He knows the various powers are bringing various partnership offers and business deals to him, so he's basically having everyone compete with each other. At the same time, he gets to choose the best deal. Unfortunately, our proposal is something Black Flame will not be able to refuse. After giving the matter some thought, Thousand Lives nodded in agreement. In any case, Feng would still have to beg them for help. It wouldn't matter whether they negotiated privately or in a group. In this situation, the Four Saints Society's group remained silent. It was evident that they were also confident in their proposal. Meanwhile, upon seeing this situation, Yuluo smiled and said, "Please enter." After Yuluo finished speaking, the representatives of the dozen or so powers present made their way up to the Wanderer's shop's third floor. However, upon arriving on the third floor and seeing the items displayed here, everyone nearly had their eyes fall out of their sockets. Level 120 to level 130 Dark Gold Set Equipment Designs. Level 100 plus Epic Equipment Designs. Advanced Magic Array Designs. Advanced Shop Construction Design. Advanced Hotel Construction Design. Master Icefire Bomb Design. Each and every item displayed here was something that couldn't be found easily in the outside world. However, the items were also astonishingly expensive. Even the cheapest cost 6,000 ancient gold, enough money to purchase a relatively good plot of land in Dragonheart City. However, while the gathered group was agog over the items available on the third floor, a sense of oppression suddenly enveloped everyone, making them feel incredibly uncomfortable. This sense of oppression originated from the two cloaked men standing beside Feng. Tier 48? Why are there even more Tier 4s? Both Elder Wu's group and Intoxicated Drunkard's group were shocked by this situation. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. First, it was Heaven's Blade's Yuluo. Now, two more Tier 4 players actually appeared behind Feng. Moreover, the two men's auras were much stronger than that of any of the Tier 4 players they had come across before. Tier 4 players currently stood at the very top of God's Domain's player hierarchy. Having one Tier 4 player would already allow a player force to gain a stable foothold in the game's currently chaotic state, and become an object of fear for the various superpowers. Feng currently had 3 Tier 4 players on his side, including Feng and Fire Dance. This meant Zero Wing had a total of 5 Tier 4 players under its command. This caliber of strength was simply maddening. Even the 5 great super guilds were unlikely to have as many Tier 4 players as Zero Wing did. Meanwhile, after scanning the crowd before him, Feng said calmly, "Everyone, if you have something to say, please say it directly. I still have many matters to attend to, so I truly do not have time for beating around the bush." Chapter 28073 3-star Wanderer's Shop. Feng's statement was like a hammer that struck everyone's mind. For a time, those intent on negotiating with Feng to maximize their own profits were nonplussed. Even Elder Wu, who had come here brimming with confidence, was momentarily at a loss for words. Feng's display of power was simply too astonishing. Zero Wing's strength had severely exceeded Elder Wu's expectations. The 4 Tier 4 players here in this Wanderer's Shop, plus the 3 Tier 4 experts over at the Twin Towers Kingdom meant Zero Wing had a total of 7 Tier 4 players on its side. With such strength, even NPC forces would find dealing with Zero Wing tough. While the gathered crowd suspected that Feng was trying to instill fear into them by showing off his power, Feng himself didn't think he was doing such a thing at all. This was because he was truly busy. Initially, Feng planned to contact Heaven's Blade's commander after entering Dragonheart City. However, for some reason Divine Edge and the others couldn't contact Svi, not even through offline means. This situation temporarily prevented Zero Wing and Heaven's Blade from furthering their partnership, and it severely affected Feng's plans. Fortunately, Divine Shadow had agreed to gather up the remaining Heaven's Blade members and put Heaven's Blade under Zero Wing's banner in the meantime. Now, Heaven's Blade was barely considered an adventurer team subordinated to Zero Wing, and had to obey Feng's arrangements. Dragonheart Island's various powers had long since split Heaven's Blade's territories inside the World Tower among themselves after the adventurer team disbanded. However, Warblood's fall granted Dragonheart Island's various powers a new opportunity to gain more territory. Hence, Feng had tasked Divine Shadow with snatching Warblood's territory first. After all, these territories were important sources of ancient coins. He couldn't keep Heaven's Blade's members fed for free. Aside from territories inside the World Tower, Heaven's Blade also had over a dozen shops in key locations inside Dragonheart City. Feng planned on bringing some of Candlelight's products to sell in these shops. As for the land surrounding the World Tower, due to Zwei's absence, Divine Shadow could only delegate one medium-sized land to Zero Wing with his authority. What this land would be used for was entirely up to Feng. However, half of the profits the land generated would have to be split with Heaven's Blade. After all, there were still plenty of people in the adventure team that needed nurturing. Feng had no opinion in regard to this situation. On the contrary, he was very happy to secure the management rights of a medium-sized land. After all, Zero Wing's members also had to explore the World Tower. The hotel built on a small-sized land was hardly enough for Zero Wing's purposes. A medium-sized hotel would alleviate the guild's pressure. Hence, Feng needed to arrange what kind of hotel to construct. Aside from this, Feng also received another piece of good news when he entered Dragonheart City. The Wanderer's shop was eligible for promotion to 3-star status. Originally, he had only planned to have the Wanderer's shop purchase some epic materials and the precious materials necessary to construct the small mobile fortress. He never thought that in the time he was away, the Wanderer's shop would actually meet the conditions for promotion to 3-star status. So long as a Wanderer's shop reached 3-star status, it would undergo a qualitative transformation. Hence, Feng had decisively spent 30,000 of the ancient gold the Wanderer's shop had earned during his absence, and upgraded the shop to 3-star status. However, before he could even check out the 3-star Wanderer's shop specifics, Dragonheart City's various powers had come looking for him already. This forced him to push back his schedule and negotiate with these profit-hungry powers seeking a share of Warblood's corpse. Meanwhile, after silence enveloped the room for a short moment, Intoxicated Drunkard, the Four Saints Society's vice guild leader, stepped forward. Guild leader Black Flame, I understand that Zero Wing is planning to partner with Heaven's Blade to annex all of Warblood's resource spots. However, although Blood Oath is currently imprisoned and Warblood is in chaos, Warblood's backer, the Secret Hand Association, is not to be trifled with. With Secret Hand's presence, annexing the 17 resource spots Warblood holds on the 4th underground floor will be difficult. Of course, I believe that with your strength, annexing those resource spots shouldn't be a problem. However, maintaining them will be. Such a task will require a large number of experts. It can't be done with just a few Tier 4 experts. Hence, the Four Saints Society wishes to partner with Zero Wing to go against Warblood and Secret Hand, Intoxicated Drunkard said confidently. Once we annex all of Warblood's resource spots on the 4th floor, each of our sides will take half. Of course, we won't let Zero Wing give up these resource spots for nothing. After saying so, Intoxicated Drunkard took out a city-building order from his bag. The Four Saints Society understands that Zero Wing is currently having difficulty defending the Secret Covenant Tower. However, with this city-building order, Zero Wing can instantly construct a guild city beside the tower. With this guild city to fall back on, Zero Wing should have a much easier time repelling the various superpowers. In addition, the Four Saints Society will also trade various rare materials and level 110+ secret silver weapons and equipment with Zero Wing. We will sell these items to Zero Wing at market value. May I know what you think of this, Guild Leader Black Flame? When Intoxicated Drunkard took out the city-building order, the other powers' representatives were dumbfounded. This situation also made many of the powers seeking to partner with Zero Wing despair. The Four Saints Society was a super guild. Only a few powers operating on Dragonheart Island could match its resources, manpower, and background. Even setting aside the fact that the Four Saints Society was a super guild, just the city-building order alone made it impossible for the various powers present to compete with the Four Saints Society. This was because the city-building order was what Zero Wing currently needed the most. At this time, a gloomy expression appeared on Elder Wu's face. He never thought that the Four Saints Society would have a city-building order too. This would undoubtedly increase the competition. After the silence in the room had stretched for some time, Feng swept a glance at the various powers' representatives. May I know if anyone else has something to say? If not, I will have to ask you to leave. I still have to continue detailed discussions with Vice Guild Leader Drunkard, Feng said in a calm tone. However, His interest in the city-building order was obvious to everyone present. Upon seeing this situation, Intoxicated Drunkard smiled in satisfaction. He was very confident in the success of the partnership this time, as he was certain Zero Wing wouldn't be able to resist the city-building order's temptation. Hence, he had paid no heed to having to attend negotiations together with the other powers. What should we do now, Elder Wu? Thousand Lives asked anxiously. The World Tower's fourth underground floor was crucial for them to search for Tier 4 legacy lands. The influence of a Tier 4 player was not something Tier 3 players could hope to match. Every addition of a Tier 4 player could increase a guild's overall strength by a large margin. Simultaneously, Tier 4 players were crucial in resisting the invasion of NPC forces. For the current super guilds, Tier 3 players were no longer the thing they lacked the most. After all, they had the required foundation and resources to nurture a large number of high-caliber experts. Even without complete Tier 3 legacies, it was only a matter of time before these experts reached Tier 3. As proof of this point, not one of the superpowers attempting to wrestle control over the Secret Covenant Tower was a super guild. Only super first-rate guilds, which were lacking in foundation and resources, were contending for the tower. However, the World Tower's fourth underground floor, which could reliably generate Tier 4 legacy lands, was a different story. Moreover, the World Tower still had the fifth underground floor and beyond. The chances of Tier 4 legacy lands appearing in these locations were most likely even higher. However, if a power did not possess a base of operations on the fourth underground floor, exploring the even more dangerous fifth underground floor would be utterly impossible for this power. Just as the various powers' representatives were about to turn around and leave, a deep voice resounded in the room. Wait a minute. Guild leader Black Flame. Suddenly Elder Wu said, 13 Thrones plans on partnering with Zero Wing as well. Moreover, the conditions we offer will not be any inferior to the Four Saints societies. After saying so, Elder Wu also brought out a city-building order. Crap! Another city-building order. The representatives of the various powers present gasped at this situation. The city-building order was an incomparably rare item, no less rare than fragmented legendary items. Meanwhile, it was many times more valuable than fragmented legendary items. After all, there was no way a fragmented legendary item could compare with an entire guild city. When Elder Wu took out a city-building order, Intoxicated Drunkard's complexion darkened slightly. This is interesting. What should have originally been a monopoly has now become a two-sided competition. I wonder how Black Flame will decide? Both parties are super guilds and neither is weaker than the other. Moreover, both have their own advantages as well. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The various powers representatives couldn't help their curiosity as they looked at Elder Wu and Intoxicated Drunkard. They wondered how Feng would proceed in this situation. By stating that 13 Thrones would match the Four Saints Society's offer, Elder Wu was basically hinting to Intoxicated Drunkard for their two guilds to avoid competing with each other. That way they could maximize the profits from Zero Wing. Simultaneously, his words also compelled Feng to make a decision. Feng should choose to partner with either 13 Thrones or the Four Saints Society. If Feng refused to choose one, then negotiations would not proceed. Naturally, Intoxicated Drunkard quickly picked up on Elder Wu's intentions. Hence, he remained silent and simply looked at Feng. Evidently, he planned on taking the same stance as Elder Wu. It seems both of you came with sincerity for cooperation. Feng smiled as he looked at the two city-building orders before him. Unfortunately, I cannot agree to any of your conditions. Chapter 2808 Feng's conditions. You can't agree? What do you mean by that? Guild leader Black Flame? Elder Wu and Intoxicated Drunkard were confused when they heard Feng's response. Similarly, the representatives of the other powers present were stunned by Feng's words. Originally, they thought that they would see an intense clash between 13 Thrones and the Four Saints Society, and Zero Wing would decide how to settle the fight. Yet Feng had outright rejected both guilds. What was going on here? Is Black Flame trying to teach Elder Wu and Intoxicated Drunkard a lesson for banding together? Probably. After all, Zero Wing isn't faring that well over at the Twin Towers Kingdom. It definitely needs a city-building order. If I were in Black Flame's shoes, I would probably do something like this too. After all, that's half of the 4th floor's resource spots as well as fortresses in Tier 4 legacy lands. Trading away all these things just for one city building order is simply absurd. Although the 2 super guilds offered to help garrison the resource spots, that kind of help is inconsequential. With Black Flame's status and deterrence on Dragonheart Island, there's no way anyone would dare have any designs on Warblood's resource spots and fortresses. As the various representatives discussed Feng's actions and realized his aim, they couldn't help admiring him for his wisdom. He had thoroughly placed both super guilds in a bind with this move of his. After all, both the 4 Saint Society and 13 Thrones were incredibly desperate to produce Tier 4 players. This was because a few super first-rate guilds had already produced Tier 4 players, yet these 2 super guilds had not produced one even now. In terms of top combatants, the 2 guilds had already fallen way behind their peers. Hence, the 2 guilds' desperation for Tier 4 players. Otherwise, with the status of these 2 super guilds, they wouldn't take the initiative to seek cooperation with Zero Wing at all. While the onlookers were discussing quietly among themselves, Feng looked at Elder Wu, an intoxicated drunkard, and said, "Please do not misunderstand. I see your sincerity in this matter. However, a city-building order isn't particularly urgent for Zero Wing. In fact, you can even say that we don't need it." "Don't need it?" Elder Wu, an intoxicated drunkard, smiled subconsciously when they heard Feng's words. "May we know what you need most now, Guild Leader Black Flame?" The 2 of them felt that Feng was basically treating them like 3-year-old children. If he were the guild leader of any other guild, they might actually believe these words. After all, a guild city would only increase the number of strongholds a guild owned by 1. However, with NPC forces currently running rampant, having 1 additional stronghold meant that a guild would have to spread its forces even thinner, which was indeed an incredibly troublesome matter. In the case of Zero Wing, though, these words were blatant nonsense. However, Elder Wu, an intoxicated drunkard, knew that it wouldn't be appropriate for them to call Feng out on his lie, so they decided to play along with him. Manpower. Ignoring the act the 2 people before him were putting on, Feng laughed and said, "You 2 might not believe me, but what Zero Wing lacks now is only manpower. We do not lack anything else. If your 2 guilds really wish to partner with Zero Wing and acquire World Tower's 4th underground floor's resource spots, take out some real sincerity." Truth be told, the city building order was something Feng could do without. A small mobile fortress was basically half a city. Not to mention, an ordinary guild city wouldn't suffice to let Zero Wing exert complete control over the secret Covenant Tower. Only a fortress could do that. This was because a guild city was more focused on defense than offense. A guild city mainly served as a place for players to rest and trade. At best, it could provide some benefits to the players heading into the secret Covenant Tower. It couldn't actually prevent other powers from forcing their way into the tower. In the end, Zero Wing would still have to rely on its own strength to accomplish this feat. This just so happened to be something beyond Zero Wing right now. However, it was a different story for a small mobile fortress. Mobile fortresses possess great defensive capabilities and were top-tier war weapons. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to become the overlords of the sky. Manpower. Elder Wu, an intoxicated drunkard, nodded slightly at the same time. Although they found Feng's words more agreeable now, they still felt he was putting on an act. The 2 of them then exchanged looks and came to a tacit understanding. Since Feng insisted on acting, they would play along and see how long Feng could keep doing so. Smiling, intoxicated drunkard asked, "May I know how you plan on having our 2 guilds cooperate with you?" Guild Leader Black Flame? "Simple. I just need your 2 guilds to supply me with 300 advanced forgers, 200 advanced alchemists, 500 advanced architects, 100 advanced magicians, and 2 master magicians. I'll also need 10,000 Tier 3 players. Lend these people to me for half a month," Feng said, chuckling. "If you can agree to that, I will give you 2 of Warblood's small fortresses." When Feng finished speaking, Elder Wu and intoxicated drunkard were stunned. They couldn't understand Feng's purpose. Not only did he not want their city-building orders, but he was even asking for a large number of lifestyle players. Although Feng had also asked for 10,000 Tier 3 experts, the various superpowers already had around 50,000 Tier 3 expert players on average at this stage of the game. Lending 10,000 Tier 3 experts wouldn't be a problem for their 2 super guilds. On the contrary, the conditions Feng offered were incredibly advantageous to their 2 guilds. With a small fortress on the World Tower's 4th underground floor, their 2 guilds could reside on the 4th floor in the future. Simultaneously, they would have the necessary foundation to explore the 5th underground floor. May I know your thoughts on this? Feng asked, smiling. City building order? The 4th underground floor's small fortresses? Tier 4 legacy lands? These things were inconsequential to his present self. So long as he had the small mobile fortress, nobody in God's domain would be able to threaten Zero Wing. Not even Tier 4 players. The only problem was the massive scale of the small mobile fortress's construction, which required a considerable amount of manpower. It wasn't something he could accomplish easily by himself. Initially, he had been considering having all of Candlelight's lifestyle players halt their work and focus on constructing the small mobile fortress. He never imagined that 2 super guilds would send themselves to his doorsteps. Is what you say true, Guild Leader Black Flame? Intoxicated Drunkard asked skeptically. You can rest assured on this point. We can sign a contract for this. Your 2 guilds will be free to capture the 2 promised fortresses, and Zero Wing will not lay a finger on them. I can even stop Secret Hands NPCs from interfering with your 2 guilds, Feng said with a sincere smile on his face. Upon hearing Feng's words of assurance, Elder Wu said without hesitation, in that case, I agree to your offer on behalf of 13 Thrones, Guild Leader Black Flame. What super guilds lacked the least was manpower. Even though Feng was asking for quite a lot of manpower, it was well within their tolerance. The Four Saints Society has no problem with this arrangement either, Intoxicated Drunkard said, an indescribably happy smile appearing on his face. For the Four Saints Society, being able to gain one of Warblood's small fortresses just by loaning some manpower was an incredibly profitable trade. It was much better than surrendering a precious city building order. As for the threat of the Secret Hand Association, just one word from Feng would most likely prevent any of the association's Tier 4 NPCs from setting foot in the World Tower. After all, the Holy Star Knight Legion was both the protector and manager of the World Tower. Prohibiting NPCs that attacked players from entering the World Tower would be an easy task for the Knight Legion. Without the Secret Hand Association, the only Tier 4 combatant Warblood would have on its side would be Autumn Plant. While he would still pose a problem, the Four Saints Society and 13 Thrones could handle him. Was upon seeing this situation, the other powers' representatives grew envious. They never thought that Feng would offer such loose conditions to the 2 super guilds. Nonetheless, fulfilling these conditions was still impossible for the other powers. Setting aside the large number of lifestyle players Feng sought, just the condition of 10,000 Tier 3 experts was already beyond them. Only the superpowers had the ability to do so. Elder Wu and Intoxicated Drunkard signed a contract with Feng on behalf of their respective guilds right away. According to the contract, 13 Thrones and the Four Saints Society would lend the stated manpower to Feng for half a month. Moreover, all operations for this half a month had to be kept a secret. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. After signing the contract, the 2 super guilds promptly summoned the necessary manpower to Dragonheart Island. This was because the contract would take effect only after all the required manpower was assembled and transferred to Feng. Before that, their 2 guilds shouldn't even think of capturing Warblood's small fortresses. Having concluded negotiations with the 2 super guilds, Feng finally had some free time to himself. Inside the quiet 3rd floor, Feng took out the several items he acquired from killing Sabrid and began inspecting them. Previously, he had been too busy to inspect Sabrid's loot. Now that he had finished his tasks, he could finally take a proper look at them. Sabrid had been the vice commander of Dragonheart City's City Defense Legion, a level 160 Tier 4 NPC, and an executive of the Secret Hand Association. Nobody would believe that he had only one fragmented legendary item on him. Chapter 2809. Half a step away, Sabrid had dropped a total of 6 items. Aside from the fragmented legendary greatsword Demonic Shadow, the 5 remaining items looked very ordinary. In fact, they looked so normal that Feng was confused when he first stored them in his bag. This was because the 5 items appeared to be a set. Of the 5 items, for were mirrors made entirely of crystal. However, unlike the fragmented legendary greatsword, these 4 mirrors did not radiate a frightening aura. More precisely, they did not even have a hint of aura. They looked ordinary beyond ordinary. As for the 5th item, it was an ink-black crystal the size of a basketball. Like the 4 crystalline mirrors, this crystal ball was similarly indescribably ordinary. It did not radiate even a whiff of mana. Interesting. Realization flashed in Feng's eyes as he looked at the ink-black crystal ball and 4 crystalline mirrors placed before him. If I didn't take a closer look at them, I would never have thought these 5 items actually had a magic disguise. The standard of this disguise is also absurdly high. It is definitely at the half-step Grandmaster standard. In God's domain, apart from special items, players needed to use the appraisal skill on most items to inspect their information. However, there was also another type of item that was outside of this category, and that was magically disguised items. Items that had magic disguise used on them would have their information concealed. Using the appraisal skill on these items would show that they were no different from ordinary garbage. However, applying a magic disguise on an item was a complicated process, and even a master magician would need several hours just to complete a master magic disguise's magic array. Needless to say, placing a half-step Grandmaster magic disguise would be even more tedious. And worse, the disguise would disappear whenever the disguised item was used. One would have to apply a new magic disguise to disguise the item again. Thus, magically disguised items were incredibly rare in God's domain. Most players wouldn't even come across one throughout their career in God's domain. And if players did come across such an item, they would often treat it as garbage and dispose of it. However, Sabrad was both the vice commander of Dragonheart City's City Defense Knight Legion and a level 160 Tier 4 NPC. In God's domain, Dragonheart City could be considered a kingdom. In terms of status, the neutral city rivaled imperial capitals. Hence, despite being only the vice commander of one of Dragonheart City's Knight Legions, Sabrad's status was higher than even that of magistrates that managed the various kingdoms' main cities. In addition, Sabrad was also an executive of the Secret Hand Association, the strongest NPC force on Dragonheart Island. If one were to say that an NPC like Sabrad had dropped a bunch of odds and ends, let alone Feng, even ordinary players wouldn't believe it. Of course, perceiving such a high-level disguise wasn't an easy task, let alone the standard appraisal skill. Even Feng's omniscient eyes would allow him to see only the cover information of a disguised item. Only those with great mastery over magic arrays would notice that an item was magically disguised. The 5 items placed before Feng were precisely magically disguised items. On the surface, these 5 items looked ordinary and unremarkable. If not for Feng's in-depth understanding of the operating principles of mana, he wouldn't have noticed anything wrong at all. Thank goodness I'm already an advanced master magician. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have noticed such an exquisite disguise. Looking at the 5 items, Feng couldn't contain his elation as he studied the disguise. While it was possible for one to remove a magic disguise forcibly, that option should only be a last resort because doing so would damage the disguised item. Not to mention, the removal of a magic disguise was a process favored by all magicians. The removal of a magic disguise was an opportunity for a magician to improve their knowledge, since the removal process tested a person's knowledge and control over magic arrays. One would have to locate the fixed mana routes and identify the manipulation method of the magic array to remove the disguise. This was why players seeking to improve their knowledge of magic arrays would usually purchase disguised items from magic shops. Only, the more profound a magic disguise was, the greater their price and rarity. Magic disguises at the master rank and above were especially rare. This was partly because master magicians could earn much more money through selling other magic arrays. Moreover, creating these other magic arrays took much less time than the master magic disguises magic array did. Creating master magic disguises simply wasn't cost-effective. Subsequently, the seconds and minutes passed by rapidly. While Feng attempted to undo the disguise, 3 hours elapsed in the blink of an eye. He had started with manipulating 6 independent strands of mana simultaneously to trigger the magic array's mana nodes, then gradually increased that number to 12. Feng had to admit that a half-step Grandmaster magic disguise was truly profound. Even after he had switched to manipulating 16 strands of mana simultaneously, He managed to trigger only 60% of the magic array's mana nodes. This isn't right. There are over 1,000 mana nodes on this thing. If I merely follow the predetermined mana routes, I doubt I can trigger every mana node even if I control 32 strands of mana simultaneously. The more Feng studied the half-step Grandmaster magic disguise, the more he found it to be amazing. The creation of this thing had already exceeded the limits of the human mind. Although it was only simple mana manipulation, the degree of multitasking required to fully activate it put him in a huge bind. He simply couldn't get all of the magic array's 1,000 plus mana nodes running simultaneously with his current standard. Afterward, Feng earnestly inspected the magic disguise once more. He had a vague feeling that he had found a pattern, but he couldn't tell what it was exactly. Immediately, he took out a crystal of souls from his bag and consumed it to calm and empty his mind. 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. Before Feng realized it, he had already spent half a day scrutinizing the magic array's mana nodes. I see. Every several dozen of these nodes form a small magic array, and some of the nodes on these small magic arrays connect with other small magic arrays. If I start my attack from the crucial nodes, I should be able to save myself a lot of trouble. After thinking up to this point, Feng began manipulating the magic array's mana once more. This time, though, he started with the mana nodes with the highest repetition rate. Completion rate 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. When the disguise magic array lit up, Feng grew ecstatic. However, his joy wasn't just from cracking the magic array. It was also because his understanding of magic arrays had further improved, and he finally grasped the difference between advanced master magicians and half-step grandmaster magicians. The sound of glass shattering echoed in the room. Subsequently, the undisguised crystalline mirror made the space within the room incomparably cold and heavy. What powerful mana! Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Even for Feng. This was the first time he had felt such strange and heavy mana. It felt as if the object before him wasn't an item but an ancient god instead. In fact, he even had the misconception that the energy flowing around him was no longer mana, but a more terrifying energy that carried great destructive power. If not for him having reached Tier 4 already, he might have lost consciousness just from being subjected to this oppressive energy. Crap! Who was this Sabrid? Feng was dumbfounded when the crystalline mirror's statistics appeared in front of him. Chapter 28:10 World Mirror. Feng had considered many possibilities for the items Sabrid dropped. He had even entertained the possibility that one of the disguised items might be a damaged legendary item. After all, killing a Tier 4 NPC inside Dragonheart City was incredibly difficult. Had Sabrid not taken the initiative to leave the city's boundaries and stood inside the city instead, the odds of Feng killing the NPC would have been 0. This was because Dragonheart City's defensive magic array strengthened all allied NPCs within the city. Unless Sabrid violated Dragonheart City's laws, the other NPCs within the city would have immediately come to Sabrid's assistance as soon as Feng attacked him. In fact, Sharaviria could have saved Sabrid as Feng was about to land the killing blow. After all Tier 5 NPCs were capable of world creation. One shouldn't underestimate Sharaviria simply because she arrived at Dragonheart City's entrance by flying to the scene slowly. If she wished, she could have moved from the World Tower to the city's entrance in the blink of an eye. Looking at the crystalline mirror in his hand, Feng began speculating about Sabrid's identity. This was because this item didn't belong in the hands of a minor character. Turning to the 3 other crystalline mirrors and the ink-black crystal ball, Feng smiled involuntarily. According to rumors, only those who succeed in conquering an empire can obtain the world mirror. Yet, I actually got it from a Tier 4 NPC. I doubt anybody would believe me if I told them about this. The world mirror. Also known as the space mirror, the world mirror was a treasure passed down since ancient times. It wasn't something the modern god's domain could produce. This was because the world mirror originated from ancient gods. Even creating a replica of it was impossible. These items were treated as national heirlooms by the various empires. Without taking control of an empire, players wouldn't be able to obtain a world mirror at all. Of course, the world mirror Feng acquired from Sabrid wasn't complete. The world mirror was a set of 12 mirrors in one control core. He would have to gather all 13 components to complete it. A complete world mirror could seal the sky, lock the earth, and move space itself. One shouldn't compare the world mirror to a simple sealing barrier. The world mirror was far more than that. It could not only seal a designated space but even transform the sealed space into a world of its own. Even Tier 5 existences shouldn't think of breaking out of this miniature world. Within the boundaries of this miniature world, a hostile existence's strength would plummet. Tier 5 existences would be fortunate to exhibit 30% of their strength while subject to the world mirror's suppression. Existences below Tier 5 would fare even worse. The world mirror possessed an incredible range. Once activated, it would have no problem sealing an area encompassing several large maps. In the past, unless a Tier 6 God-ranked expert took to the field, any player forces that possessed a world mirror had been unstoppable within the territory protected by their world mirror. Even Tier 6 experts had their combat power weakened significantly under the world mirror's influence. This was also why super guilds with several Tier 6 experts had sometimes been helpless against the territories of top-ranking first-rate guilds with only one Tier 6 expert defending them. The world mirror Feng possessed was incomplete, so it couldn't create a world of its own. Regardless, this incomplete world mirror would still be considered a priceless treasure by any guild. It was far more valuable than even legendary items. This was because even an incomplete world mirror boasted many incredible effects. One example would be its ability to move a guild city to any desired location. Aside from that, if Feng bound this incomplete world mirror to the core magic array of a guild city, the said guild city would be immediately promoted to basic main city. A complete world mirror could elevate a guild city to the status of an advanced main city. Most imperial capitals were merely advanced main cities. Holy cities, one level above advanced main cities, numbered less than a handful in the modern gods domain. Meanwhile, a holy city was something that couldn't be conquered without Tier 6 gods. Anyone who attacked a holy city without a Tier 6 god on their side would only be seeking their own deaths. It wouldn't matter how many Tier 5s they had. This was because one of the conditions for promotion to holy city was the world mirror's protection. Even having multiple Tier 5 existences garrisoning a city wouldn't suffice to meet a holy city's defensive requirements. Now that Sabret had dropped such a treasure, how could Feng not be shocked and confused? Although I don't know who exactly this NPC is, now that I have the world mirror, I can adjust my development plan. Various thoughts occurred to Feng as he looked at the world mirror. Even though this world mirror was incomplete, it could still exhibit astonishing effects. He couldn't create a holy city now, but he could still create a main city. If Zero Wing gained a main guild city at this stage of the game, it would do wonders for the guild. The footprint of a main city was 3 times that of an advanced city. In terms of defense, a main city could easily withstand the attacks of Tier 4 existences. Most importantly, at the main city standard, a guild city would have no problem establishing itself almost anywhere in God's domain, aside from forbidden lands. It wouldn't have to worry about defending against monster tides. While Feng was debating which of Zero Wing cities he should bind the world mirror to, he suddenly received a message from Intoxicated Drunkard. Guild Leader Black Flame, both our guilds have already gathered the people you require in Dragonheart City. In a slightly eager tone, Intoxicated Drunkard asked, "When will you come to receive them?" Already. This news surprised Feng. Looking at the time, he saw that only half a day had gone by since the contract signing with the 2 super guilds. With Dragonheart City still sealed, teleporting into the city was impossible. Hence, traveling to Dragonheart City would be difficult for players. Needless to say, assembling so many lifestyle players in Dragonheart City would be even more difficult. He had anticipated having to wait at least 2 days, yet the 2 super guilds had fulfilled their end of the bargain in just half a day. Their efficiency was truly superb. Of course, smiling proudly, Intoxicated Drunkard said, "You shouldn't forget that our 2 guilds have focused on maritime development, Guild Leader Black Flame. This much is still within our capabilities." "Okay, I'll head over right away." Nodding, Feng stored the world mirror and promptly left the Wanderer's shop to receive the 2 super guilds people. A group of 20,000 Tier 3 experts and several thousand lifestyle players would attract anyone's attention. However, as Elder Wu and Intoxicated Drunkard understood Feng's thoughts very well, they did not conduct the handover in Dragonheart City. Instead, they chose to do it outside the city. This way, the transaction would be sub rosa. and Feng wouldn't have to worry about his intentions getting exposed. Guild Leader Black Flame, all of the manpower you requested is here. These people will follow your command for the next half-month. Moreover, they have also signed a contract that prohibits them from leaking information on the task they have to do, Intoxicated Drunkard said, smiling as he pointed at the tens of thousands of players standing in the valley behind him. Now that we've fulfilled our end of the contract, may we know when our two guilds can head to the World Tower? Their two guilds urgently needed the 4th underground floor's small fortresses. After all, the sooner they occupied the fortresses, the sooner they could start searching for Tier 4 legacy lands. Otherwise, they wouldn't have expended so much effort to bring all these people to Dragonheart City in such a short time. Looking at the anxious expressions of Intoxicated Drunkard and Thousand Lives, Feng chuckled and said, "You can begin capturing the fortresses now. I have already notified Yu Luo about it. She is also an honorary knight, and she will keep an eye out for Warblood and Secret Hand inside the World Tower. If Secret Hand dares to try anything, they won't get away with it. So you can do as you wish inside the tower." In that case, thank you, Guild Leader Black Flame. Intoxicated Drunkard's eyes glowed brightly when he heard Feng's reply. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Thousand Lives similarly departed in a hurry after thanking Feng. After the two guild executives left, the remaining members of the two super guilds looked at Feng in a daze, wondering what Feng planned on having them do afterward. Everyone follow me. I'm afraid you'll be very busy for the upcoming period. After glancing at the tens of thousands of players in the valley, Feng nodded and led them to a nearby island. He then set up a sealing barrier there to prevent anyone on the island from contacting the outside world. This barrier also prevented players from going offline. Anyone who wished to log out of the game would have to leave the barrier first. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. 3 days later, on a barren island nearby Dragonheart Island, with a face full of excitement, Solitary 9 flew up to Feng, who was drawing a magic array inside a humongous steel fortress. Commander, I just received news from Dragonheart City. Starlink and Miracle have begun taking action. Should we head over now? After completing the core magic array, Feng breathed out a deep sigh. Those guys sure moved quickly, Feng said, chuckling. Fine. I'm done here as well. Have Thorn get ready on his side. We're returning to the Eastern Continent now. Yes, sir. Solitary 9 nodded, his eyes shining with excitement. Chapter 28:11 Changes to Sky Spring City Twin Towers Kingdom. Sky Spring City. Accompanied by several bright flashes, 3 cloaked figures appeared in the city's teleportation hall. These 3 figures belonged to none other than Feng, Lifeless Thorn and Solitary 9. The sight of a massive crowd of players greeted the trio upon arrival. At a glance, they could estimate that the building held over 10,000 players. The place looked much more prosperous than even the teleportation hall of the Twin Towers Kingdom's royal capital. The majority of the players present were Tier 3 and sported guild emblems belonging to various guilds. These players all radiated a cold-killing intent, which created a strange atmosphere inside the teleportation hall. Why are there so many guild experts here? Solitary 9 was surprised as he took in the surroundings. Even Dragonheart City's teleportation hall is far from comparable to this place. From what Solitary 9 could tell, quite a few of these Tier 3 experts were at the Refinement Realm standard. Even among the superpowers, Refinement Realm experts were treated as core members. However, he counted more than 500 Refinement Realm experts just in the teleportation hall alone, around the number of Refinement Realm experts an average superpower possessed. Friends, you must have just arrived in the Twin Towers Kingdom, right? I'll have you know that this day might very well go down in the history books of God's domain, a robust Tier 3 Berserker said, smiling as he walked out of the teleportation array. This Tier 3 Berserker had reached level 122. He was fully equipped in level 120 fine gold equipment, and carried a level 120 dark gold axe on his back. Based on equipment alone, he could rank among the top of Tier 3 players. Moreover, this Berserker did not wear a guild emblem. This meant he was an independent expert. Being able to secure himself such high-quality equipment was a testament to his capabilities. The dozen or so players following after the Berserker possessed similar equipment standards. Since everyone in the group had a white lion symbol marking their equipment, they evidently were members of the same adventurer team. Go down in God's domain's history? Stunned by these words, Solitary 9 asked curiously, "Friend, we have indeed just arrived in this kingdom. Do you mind telling us what's going to happen here today? Our White Lion adventurer team just received news of this as well. It seems that Starlink somehow managed to recruit the help of some Tier 4 NPCs, and these NPCs captured around a dozen guild executives from Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor during a fight at a blockade. These guild executives are currently imprisoned in Starlink's residence," the robust Berserker said. Starlink has announced a crusade against Zero Wing's blockade at the Secret Covenant Tower, and is calling for all powers to gather in Sky Spring City. Starlink is also demanding the 3 guilds remove the seal on Sky Spring City. Otherwise, it's going to use the captured executives as a sacrifice as an opening gambit. I heard that besides Zero Wing's alluring Summer and Shadow Sword, even Unyielding Soul's Vice Guild leader Mu Lingsha and Crimson Emperor's up-and-coming talent Blue Gown were captured. If the 3 guilds don't concede, Starlink will have the Tier 4 NPCs kill these people using a method that will harm their souls. Not only will these people suffer increased death penalties, but they will also enter a weakened state for a long period. There's even a possibility that their accounts will get crippled. Upon hearing the Berserker's words, Feng frowned slightly. He never thought that the Secret Hand Association's Tier 4 NPCs would actually interfere in this matter. How bold of Starlink! It dares wag its tail in Zero Wing's territory and even use the 3 guilds' executives as a sacrifice? Feng sneered. I know, right? But you have to admit that Starlink is no longer the same as before. Rumors have it that Starlink has 3 Tier 4 players, as well as several superpowers backing it. Now, it even has an NPC force supporting it. In terms of influence on the Eastern continent, even the 5 great super guilds can't compare to Starlink now. The robust Berserker nodded. As our White Lion adventurer team is quite well known in the Twin Towers Kingdom, we received an invitation to take part in the crusade. Hence, we decided to come to expand our horizons. Moreover, I heard that the 3 guilds' executives would be making an appearance as well. If negotiations sour, it will definitely lead to the biggest battle in God's domain's history. I see. Feng nodded. After listening to the Berserker, Feng roughly understood what Starlink was planning. Simply put, Starlink was trying to show off its strength with this operation. One of its reasons for doing so was to deal with Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor. Another reason was to present itself as an existence rivaling the 5 great super guilds. Hence, it had invited so many powers to take part and witness the operation. Friend, Sky Spring City is a mess right now. If you're trying to enter that rumored Secret Covenant Tower, I'm afraid you visited the wrong city. Moreover, many superpowers are keeping a close eye on the tower right now. If independent players like ourselves are not careful, we might get treated as one of the 3 guilds members. If that happens, things will get troublesome. Looking at Feng's group of 3, the robust Berserker cautioned, you might get killed if you're lucky or captured if you're unlucky. So it's best to be careful. Thank you for the warning, Feng said. After Feng finished speaking, he left the teleportation hall with Lifeless Thorn and Solitary 9. After Feng's group departed, a male youth from the Silver Lion adventurer team looked at the robust Berserker in confusion and asked, Boss, why did you start talking to those strangers all of a sudden? It's nothing. I just thought that those 3 felt extraordinary. The more friends you have, the more options you have in life. It hasn't been easy for our adventurer team to grow to its current state. If we manage to befriend some experts, it will only benefit us, the robust Berserker replied, chuckling as he looked at the departing figures of Feng's group. Also, that cloaked swordsman looks quite familiar, though I can't remember who he is at the moment. Extraordinary? Familiar? Snickering, the youth said, Boss, everyone who visits Sky Spring City is at Tier 3. Which one of them isn't an expert? It's also normal to think that you've met someone familiar. After all, everyone looks mostly the same while wearing a black cloak. Honestly, I doubt that those 3 are anything amazing. After all, they came here without even knowing about the crusade. They also didn't receive an invitation from Starlink. They are probably experts from some backwater city. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. You experts were a dime a dozen in God's domain nowadays. However, only a small portion of these experts could make a name for themselves. Meanwhile, any of such experts operating in the Twin Towers Kingdom and the neighboring countries would have received an invitation from Starlink. The fact that Feng's group didn't prove that they were only ordinary experts unworthy of the White Lion Adventurer team's attention. Meanwhile, outside the teleportation hall, "Commander, are we going there now?" Lifeless Thorn asked when he saw that Feng wasn't heading for Zero Wing's residence. Starlink has invited experts from all over for a crusade, and is even planning on using Zero Wing's executives as sacrifices. How can I not go there to congratulate it? Feng said, rolling his eyes at Lifeless Thorn. Feng made his way to Starlink's magnificent and luxurious residence that stood on the city's main street. Chapter 28:12 Storm brewing at the resident Sky Spring City, Starlink's residence. At this time, Tier 3 experts were thronging to Starlink's residence, which occupied an area equivalent to 2 sports stadiums. Before Feng's group of 3 could arrive at the entrance of Starlink's residence, they saw the players crowding the main street, stepping aside and opening a path for a 100-man team. All the members of this 100-man team were at least a level 125 Tier 3 expert. They were also equipped with level 120 Dark Gold equipment and 2 or 3 pieces of epic equipment. The 2 people walking in the head of this team were even more eye-catching. Not only were they equipped with 6 or more pieces of epic equipment each, but both of them were actually Tier 4 players. One of them was a level 129 Berserker Emperor, while the other was a level 130 Sword Emperor. Just seeing their gear, levels, and tier made the surrounding players sigh in fascination. Crap! Who are these people? Why haven't I seen that guild emblem before? You don't know? They're from a guild called 100 Ghosts, an incredibly mysterious guild that appeared recently. I heard that it has an incredible origin. Although the guild has very few members, every one of them is an expert at Tier 3 or higher. That's right. That man and woman you see leading them are especially amazing. Before they got promoted to Tier 4, they secretly challenged the various superpowers monsters and won 49 out of 49 challenges. I never thought that those 2 would get promoted to Tier 4 after disappearing from the public eye for some time. If they already had an undefeated record before reaching Tier 4, doesn't this make them nigh invincible now that they've reached Tier 4? The surrounding players held heated discussions over 100 Ghosts' 100-man team. Simultaneously, they couldn't help admiring Starlink. 100 Ghosts was a guild that did as it pleased. It did not show respect to any superpower, yet it had actually accepted the invitation to participate in Starlink's crusade. 100 Ghosts? Feng was slightly surprised when he overheard the surrounding players' conversations. In the past, he had heard a little of the guild known as 100 Ghosts. The guild had been an incredibly mysterious existence even back then. Moreover, it had revealed itself to the public 3 years after the game's launch, shortly after the first major system update. The moment this guild made its existence known to the world, it had shaken the entire God's domain. This was because 100 Ghosts had actually had over 30 Tier 4 experts at the time. Back then, even the superpowers only had around 30 Tier 4 experts, with stronger ones having around 40. In addition, after 100 Ghosts made its public appearance, the guild's Tier 4 experts began frenziedly challenging the various superpowers and took the continent by storm. However, for some reason, after 100 Ghosts had finished challenging the various superpowers and proving its strength, it suddenly went silent. The next time it appeared, the guild already had Tier 5 experts and began challenging the 5 great super guilds. Despite having the ability to challenge the 5 great super guilds, 100 Ghosts did not possess even a single guild residence on the main continent. The guild did not compete for resources either. The only thing the guild did was do combat. This situation had given the 5 great super guilds headaches back then. After all, the 100 Ghosts guild was simply too mysterious. It did not have any roots, so it was impossible to target the guild's base of operations. On the other hand, the number of Tier 5 experts the guild had was not the slightest bit inferior to the 5 great super guilds. In this life, God's Domain's first major system update had taken place 2 years ahead of time, and 100 Ghosts had also appeared 2 years ahead of time. This situation put Feng in a reverie. Could they be a guild from an interstellar continent? If it were before he had visited the ancient God's Domain, He probably wouldn't have any idea how such a strange guild could appear out of nowhere. However, after visiting the ancient era, he understood that God's domain housed players not just from Earth, but from the several interstellar continents as well. Just like the ancient God's domain, 100 ghosts could be from another version of God's domain. Only this version of God's domain overlapped with the modern God's domain much more closely than the ancient God's domain. Hence, 100 ghosts could bring so many players to the modern God's domain. In fact, Feng even suspected that the mysterious area Lifeless Thorn and the others fell into previously was 100 Ghosts' home world. However, Lifeless Thorn and the others had been repatriated to the modern God's domain before they could learn much about this other version of God's domain. This would also explain why 100 Ghosts' members gave off a similar, but more subdued, sense of abnormality as the ancient God's domain's players. Another thing that surprised Feng was that Starlink had actually managed to connect with 100 Ghosts. This never happened in Feng's previous life. Now that so many powers are gathered, I'm afraid Zero Wing will have it tough later. I know, right? The experts from Starlink, Miracle, and the other superpowers aside, just the number of experts gathered here is still more than enough to make Zero Wing suffer. I wonder if Zero Wing even dares come? Starlink has obviously set up a trap. I doubt it will. Since this is Starlink's residence, even if Starlink's experts take action inside, the city's NPC soldiers won't care at all. Zero Wing's experts can only rely on themselves. The players on the main street couldn't help worrying for Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor, as they watched the various powers experts enter Starlink's residence one after another. Although Zero Wing had the home ground advantage in Sky Spring City, how could the three guilds possibly beat more than 20 superpowers when it came to expert count? Not to mention, a bunch of experts from the various major powers had also come to support Starlink. If it came down to a fight, the three guilds wouldn't stand a chance at all. So long as the three guilds' experts dared show up, only death would await them. Yet, if the three guilds did not show up, their reputation would most likely go down the drain. After all, if news of this matter spread, everyone would definitely think that the three guilds have grown timid. If the three guilds didn't even dare accept a challenge, their aim of becoming titans in God's domain was an utter joke. While the Rubberneckers were conversing among themselves, a team of several dozen players suddenly appeared on one end of the main street, their arrival startling the gathered crowd. This was because these players were members of the three guilds. Leading this team of players were none other than Fire Dance, Unyielding Soul, and Illusory Words. Moreover, aside from these three, there was actually another Tier 4 expert with them. The aura this fourth Tier 4 player released was so terrifying that the gathered crowd gasped reflexively. What? Another person from Zero Wing reached Tier 4. That person should be Violet Cloud, right? The feeling she is giving off is completely different from before. Everyone fell into a daze as they looked at the lithe figure standing at the head of the three guilds team. Violet Cloud wore a mage's robe that resembled the starry night sky, and she had her hair tied into a ponytail with a matching ribbon. She looked nothing like a sacred cleric but more like a wise and pure goddess. Her level had even reached 131, which was higher than any other Tier 4 player they had seen thus far. Shortly afterward, Violet Cloud and the other members of the three guilds arrived at the entrance of Starlink's residence. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. As if expecting their arrival, Lu Xinglua and his entourage appeared at the entrance at this time. Compared to Zero Wing's group, Lu Xinglua had 5 Tier 4 players on his side, of which 2 were from Miracle. That was one more Tier 4 player than his side had previously. The new addition was Miracle's sword freak, Miracle Dragon. At this time, Miracle Dragon had already reached level 130, and the oppressive aura he exuded was not much inferior to Violet Cloud's. Looking at Lu Xinglua, Illusory Word said coldly, "Lu Xinglua, we've come. You can let them go now. Your courage is praiseworthy, Vice Guild Leader Illusory. However, I've changed my mind." Smiling nonchalantly, Lu Xinglua said, "We went to great lengths to capture these people. If we just let them go so easily, wouldn't we superpowers suffer a hit to our reputations? How about we have a match in the residence? If you win, you can take them and leave. If you lose, all of you stay here. Do you three guilds dare accept this challenge?" Chapter 28 13 Powerful Showdown. Lu Xinglua spoke in a low tone, but his words echoed throughout the area. Everyone turned reflexively to look at Fire Dance and the others from the three guilds. A match? This is going to be interesting. I wonder if Zero Wing will accept it? If they don't, they'll embarrass themselves in front of the various powers Starlink invited. Although Zero Wing had arrived with great momentum, Starlink's side came prepared as well. Just by looking at the 5 Tier 4 players on Starlink's side, one could tell that Zero Wing held no advantage in this situation at all. Not to mention the two sides had clashed with each other many times now and suffered severe losses. Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor had already begun living off their past gains. Their stockpile of weapons and equipment was dwindling, and they were starting to have difficulty compensating their members for their losses. Simply put, only morale was keeping the three guilds alive now. However, if the three guilds refused or lost in the match, morale in the three guilds would plummet. At that time, the performance of the three guilds members would definitely be affected greatly. Upon realizing this situation, the spectating crowd was in awe of Lu Xingluo's clever move. Originally, everyone thought Starlink was merely trying to get Zero Wing to remove the seal on Sky Spring City. However, if Starlink got the three guilds' top combatants to remain in Starlink by winning a match, Sky Spring City's seal would no longer be a problem. While the spectators were having a quiet discussion among themselves, Fire Dance, Violet Cloud, Unyielding Heart, and Illusory Words briefly exchanged glances. Fine. Fire Dance answered as she looked at Lu Xingluo. What kind of match do you have in mind? Guild leader Xingluo? Their original plan was to break into Starlink's residence and rescue their captured members. However, now that Starlink had gained another Tier 4 combatant, the risk of their plan had undoubtedly increased. Not to mention, the Secret Hand Association's NPCs might be hiding inside the residence. At that time, they would have to go up against not only those NPCs but also 5 Tier 4 combatants. This would truly put them in a tough spot. After all, anyone capable of reaching Tier 4 was no pushover. In fact, they were among the best in God's domain when it came to combat standards, weapons, equipment, legacies, etc. Simple. Both sides will each select one person for a duel, and we will decide the winner in one match. Lu Xingluo said, smiling. What do you think of this, Commander Fire Dance? Fine. Fire Dance agreed without hesitation. Good. After hearing Fire Dance's response, Lu Xingluo turned to Miracle Dragon and said, Our side will have Miracle Dragon represent us. At Lu Xingluo's words, Miracle Dragon leaped into the air and hovered above Starlink's residence. He then looked down quietly at the Zero Wing contingent, evidently prepared for a fight. Big Sis Fire, let me take him on, Violet Cloud volunteered. I haven't gotten a chance to fight against other Tier 4s ever since I reached Tier 4. I don't want to miss out on this. Fire Dance and the others exchanged looks at Violet Cloud's words, hesitation appearing on their faces. The fact that Lu Xingluo dared let Miracle Dragon represent Starlink's side meant that he was confident of victory. Otherwise, he would have had a veteran Tier 4 player take to the field instead. Of course, Lu Xingluo could have made such a decision because the other Tier 4 players had long since exposed their cards during the past few battles. In contrast, Miracle Dragon had only gotten promoted to Tier 4 recently, so the moves he possessed were still unknown to Zero Wing's side. Alright, but be careful. In the end, Fire Dance still nodded and consented to Violet Cloud's request. Their side couldn't afford to lose this battle. However, Zero Wing's veteran Tier 4s faced a similar problem to Starlink's veteran Tier 4s. On the other hand, Violet Cloud was not the slightest bit inferior to the three of them in combat standards. Now that she had gotten promoted to Tier 4 as well, it went without saying her strength rivaled theirs. Hence, letting Violet Cloud represent Zero Wing's side wasn't exactly a bad decision. Unyielding Heart and Crimson Emperor did not oppose Fire Dance's decision. Instead, they warned Violet Cloud to stay out of melee range from Miracle Dragon. Otherwise, Miracle Dragon's lightning-quick attacks would devastate a magical class player like Violet Cloud. Afterward, Violet Cloud similarly leaped into the air and hovered 100 yards away from Miracle Dragon. I lost to Gentle Snow last time because of my basic attributes, but you won't be as lucky as Gentle Snow, Miracle Dragon said as he looked at Violet Cloud with a cold and arrogant gaze. Because I will come at you seriously this time. After Miracle Dragon finished speaking, energy rippled out from his body and instantly enveloped the vicinity. Meanwhile, those caught within his mana domain immediately felt their bodies become incomparably heavy. Even Tier 3 players found it difficult to move their bodies. A supergravity domain? Fire Dance frowned subconsciously when she experienced Miracle Dragon's mana domain. This was the first time she had experienced such a powerful mana domain. Although this supergravity domain didn't affect the basic attributes of players, the increased gravity would affect the player's mobility significantly. In fact, Fire Dance estimated that her mobility would be halved because of this mana domain. Needless to say, magical class players that didn't possess much strength would fare even worse in this mana domain. Before Fire Dance and the others could recover from their shock, Miracle Dragon unsheathed the silver greatsword he carried. Immediately, not only did the intensity of the aura he exuded skyrocket, but another ripple of energy spread out from his body. Unlike the earlier energy ripple, this one caused the flowing mana in the air to stagnate impossible. Unyielding Heart couldn't help doubting his eyes as he looked at Miracle Dragon. 2 domains. It was already incredibly difficult for a Tier 4 player to obtain even 1 mana domain. Hence, any Tier 4 player that succeeded in doing so would become a force to be reckoned with even among other Tier 4 players. Now Miracle Dragon revealed that he actually possessed 2 mana domains. This completely shattered Unyielding Heart's understanding of mana domains. Meanwhile, Lu Xinglua and the others on Starlink's side who were standing at the residence's entrance smiled when they saw the reactions of Fire Dance and the others from the 3 guilds. Commander Fire Dance, get ready to lose. Miracle Dragon has the supergravity domain and the space freezing domain. He is the absolute bane of magical classes, Lu Xinglua said, smiling calmly as he looked at Fire Dance. Of course, the outcome won't change even if you have someone else take to the field. Under the effects of these 2 mana domains, nobody can defeat Miracle Dragon in single combat. A dual domain wasn't just a simple addition of 2 mana domains. Instead, the effects of the 2 mana domains would overlap and generate exponentially greater results. When Miracle Dragon activated both of his mana domains, he could take on 2 of Starlink's veteran Tier 4s simultaneously and still hold his ground. Meanwhile, the spectators also stirred at this scene. They never thought a person could have 2 mana domains. As expected of the Sword Freak, even Black Flame will most likely have trouble going up against Miracle Dragon. I know, right? Black Flame only managed to stand out because he was lucky to reach Tier 4 before everyone else. But in a situation where both sides are at Tier 4, nobody can tell who is truly the best at the sword without a fight. How can the secret pavilion just arbitrarily label Black Flame the strongest? The Rubberneckers were astonished by Miracle Dragon's abilities. After all, this was the first time any of them had seen a dual domain. One could also easily determine the dual domain's effects just by looking at the Tier 3 players enveloped within it. At this time, these Tier 3 players were already kneeling on the street from the overbearing pressure. This result was much greater than that of the mana domain Feng had displayed previously. Commander, should we intervene now? Lifeless Thorn asked as he looked at Feng. This dual domain is going to be a tough nut to crack. If it's just Violet alone, I'm afraid. No, we'll continue watching, Feng replied, shaking his head and smiling. If we take action now, everyone's going to think that Zero Wing has no capable people to rely on. But that space freezing domain prevents the use of instantaneous movement. Miracle Dragon is also known for his speed and strength. Her chances of victory are really slim, Lifeless Thorn argued. While he understood what Feng was trying to say, Miracle Dragon's dual domain was a perfect counter for magical class players. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Hurulat. Chuckling, Feng looked at Violet Cloud and said, having more mana domains isn't necessarily an advantage. Moreover, Violet's strength is no longer the same as before. As soon as Feng finished speaking, they saw Violet Cloud take out Death's Sigh. However, compared to before, the current Death's Sigh released a much more terrifying aura. The instant Violet Cloud wielded it, an aura of death instantly spread into the surroundings. A dual domain might be amazing, but a lone mana domain isn't necessarily inferior. After saying so, Violet Cloud operated her mana body at maximum capacity. The next moment, energy rippled out from her body, instantly pushing back Miracle Dragon's dual domain and preventing it from extending more than 30 yards from Miracle Dragon. The difference between the mana domains of both sides was instantly determined. Chapter 28:14 Astromancer's Might. What's going on? Why did a dual domain lose to a single domain? The various experts looking up at the sky were bewildered when they saw Miracle Dragon's dual domain getting suppressed. They couldn't understand how a single domain could win against a dual domain. After all, the mana and pressure Violet Cloud's mana domain radiated were both weaker than those of Miracle Dragon's dual domain. This is interesting. This little beauty has actually surpassed Miracle Dragon in knowledge and control over mana by a large margin, a handsome youth wearing 100 Ghosts' Guild emblem said, a faint smile appearing on his face as he looked at Violet Cloud. I never thought there would be such a talent in Zero Wing. The people here think that just having high basic attributes is sufficient. They don't know that what's most important for Tier 4 players aren't attributes or combat standards but control and understanding over mana, sneered the beautiful woman with short, blue hair standing beside the handsome youth. A mana domain is the result of making an area's mana into one's own. Miracle Dragon can operate the mana of his two mana domains only at a basic standard. How can he possibly win against someone with better control over mana? Looking at Violet Cloud with fascination, the handsome youth said, but this little beauty is quite the genius. We can have her join us and become one of our outer supporting members. Abyss. Don't go acting on your old habits again. Don't forget why we came to this continent. The short-haired woman warned. Relax. I know what I'm doing. Nobody on this continent is a match for me. Zero Wing's alliance will crumble for certain this time. Nothing will change even if that black flame shows up. If this little lady wants to protect Zero Wing, she'll have no choice but to beg me. She'll definitely take the bait at that time, the handsome youth said, smiling. The short-haired beauty carrying a battle axe did not refute the youth's statement. After all, it was indeed true that they could keep Zero Wing alive with just a word. While the pair from 100 Ghosts were conversing, Miracle Dragon had taken action. Unfazed by the fact that his dual domain had been suppressed, he flew within 50 yards of Violet Cloud and brandished his greatsword. 9 extreme slashes. Tier 4 legacy skill, Light Shatter. 9 sword lights tore through space and instantly appeared around Violet Cloud. Moreover, as if to prove that Miracle Dragon had reached the domain realm already, the 9 sword lights moved around Violet Cloud like a bunch of lively monkeys, their attack trajectories unpredictable. Facing this tricky move, Violet Cloud flicked her staff and activated Blink, instantly appearing 30 yards away and dodging the 9 sword lights in the nick of time. Boom! A moment after Violet Cloud used Blink, the 9 sword lights converged on her original location and exploded, transforming the area within a 20-yard radius into an empty void. The power of this attack practically rivaled that of superior mythic monsters of the same level. However, before Violet Cloud could catch her breath, several more sword lights appeared around her, to which she responded by using Blink again. This process repeated itself over and over, the sword lights hounding Violet Cloud like her shadow. This scene dumbfounded the spectating crowd. After all, at this time Miracle Dragon looked more like a ranged player than a melee player. Every time he brandished his greatsword, several sword lights would appear around Violet Cloud. Despite the distance between the two players, it was as if Miracle Dragon were right beside Violet Cloud. Miracle Dragon really isn't holding back. Thousand Miles, who was standing at the entrance, burst into laughter as he watched the fight in the sky. At this rate, the fight will end in less than 10 seconds. Miracle Dragon was a magic swordsman. His class perfectly combined magic with the sword. The class was proficient in melee combat as well as ranged combat. While it was indeed amazing that Violet Cloud managed to render Miracle Dragon's dual domain useless, thanks to the Light Shatterer skill, Miracle Dragon could still thoroughly exhibit the might of his godly fast attacks. You might have a lot of movement skills, but while my Light Shatterer skill is active, it won't matter where you run to, so just surrender obediently, Miracle Dragon said, smirking as he watched Violet Cloud constantly dodging his attacks. Most people might expect him to be at a disadvantage when going up against magical class players, but he was a magic swordsman. It didn't matter whether he fought at close quarters or range. He was proficient in both forms of combat. Meanwhile, Light Shatterer had a 3-minute duration. Even if Violet Cloud had many movement skills, she definitely wouldn't have enough to last 3 minutes. And once she ran out of movement skills, all she could do was wait for death. Thank you for your warning. Looking at the arrogant magic swordsman, Violet Cloud smiled faintly and said, I might not be able to dodge them if I'm alone, but what if there are multiple copies of myself? After saying so, Violet Cloud swung her staff and summoned several dozen identical copies of herself within her vast starry domain. Then, the figures of Violet Cloud and her copies turned blurry, becoming indistinguishable from one another. Doppelgangers? Miracle Dragon was momentarily startled. No, their auras are too weak to be doppelgangers. They should only be illusions, and there should only be one physical body. Watch me break this move of yours. Miracle Dragon began brandishing his greatsword wildly. Unlike before, his sword lights no longer converged on a single point. Instead, they scattered all around Violet Cloud's starry domain, leaving empty voids wherever they passed and turning the starry domain into a place of death. After the series of rampant attacks, black voids filled the starry domain, which covered a 300-yard radius. This outcome thoroughly demonstrating the power of a Tier 4 magic swordsman. You refused to come out even in death? Miracle Dragon was puzzled as he looked at the dark void before him. His attacks had left no corner untouched. While Tier 4 players could indeed survive inside the empty void, they could do so only for a short period. They would still die if they lingered. As soon as Miracle Dragon finished speaking, however, Violet Cloud came strolling out of the black void entirely unscathed. It was evident that Miracle Dragon's rampant assault just now did not affect her. She avoided everything? Miracle Dragon was surprised by this scene. He knew the speed of his attacks very well. Only by using skills like Blink could magical class players dodge them. Relying solely on physical movements for evasion was impossible. Tanking his attacks would also be utterly foolish, and he would be more than glad to see Violet Cloud try. After all, her defense was bound to slip up against his swift and violent attacks. Nevertheless, Violet Cloud remained unscathed. Even her robe was intact. This proved that Violet Cloud had actually dodged all his sword lights. Amazing! I didn't even have time to cast my spells while dealing with those fast attacks. Thankfully, my starry domain just so happens to counter you. Otherwise, this really would be a tough fight. Violet Cloud sighed ruefully as she looked at the dark space around her. While the doppelgangers she summoned might seem like illusions, they were, in a certain sense, real. This was because she could freely shuttle her real body between these doppelgangers. This ability was much stronger than her blink skill. Moreover, while this ability cost concentration and mana to use, it didn't have a cooldown. And once her control over this ability improved, she could potentially summon thousands of copies of herself within her starry domain. Little girl, you're as arrogant as your guild leader. I refuse to believe you can dodge my attacks forever. Miracle Dragon said. He then held up his greatsword in preparation for another round of attacks. However, before Miracle Dragon could brandish his weapon, shadow blades emerged from the dark void behind Violet Cloud, numbering 600. Miracle Dragon, did you think I was hiding in the void just to dodge your attacks? Chuckling softly, Violet Cloud said, I spent a long time preparing to deal with you. Now let me see how you block these 600 shadow blades. As soon as Violet Cloud finished speaking, the 600 shadow blades carrying devastating power began raining down on Miracle Dragon like a hail of bullets. Miracle Dragon knew that there was no way he could dodge them all. Immediately, he activated his Berserk skill, drastically increasing his basic attributes and doubling his attack speed. The next moment, he brandished his greatsword, blocking the shadow blades one after another in rapid succession. Boom, boom, boom. A shadow blade would get sent flying away every time Miracle Dragon swung his greatsword. However, under Violet Cloud's control, these shadow blades would quickly correct their trajectories and attack him once more. The space above Starlink's residence transformed into a dark void, the shockwaves of the battle spreading throughout Sky Spring City. Rather than a clash between players, the duel between Violet Cloud and Miracle Dragon looked more like a clash between monsters. From watching this battle, the Tier 3 players present thoroughly understood how insignificant they were in front of Tier 4 players. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Despite Miracle Dragon's best efforts, there were just too many shadow blades. Moreover, Violet Cloud was also constantly making subtle adjustments to her attack patterns. As a result, roughly 20 seconds later, Miracle Dragon finally slipped up, and one shadow blade penetrated his defense. Just one hit took away 1/4 of Miracle Dragon's HP. Moreover, within a few more seconds he slipped up 3 more times. The next moment, the clash in midair came to an abrupt halt, and Miracle Dragon's eyes closed reluctantly as his body fell into the compound of Starlink's residence. Only Violet Cloud and her 600 shadow blades remained hovering in the air, the frightening aura they released instilling fear into everyone. Guild leader Lu Xinglua, you can release our people now. Chapter 28:15. How bold of you at Violet Cloud's words. Lu Xinglua's complexion turned ashen. Never did Lu Xinglua think that Miracle Dragon would lose. Moreover, the man had lost so miserably. Now, not only did Lu Xinglua fail to humiliate Zero Wing, but the morale on his side had even suffered a hit. This situation put him at a loss as to how to respond to Violet Cloud. Lu Xinglua wasn't the only one taken aback by this outcome. The various major powers were similarly stunned beyond belief. Everyone present could clearly tell that Miracle Dragon was monstrously powerful. Yet Violet Cloud had actually displayed even greater strength. At this time, they even started to think that Violet Cloud could take on 2 or 3 Tier 4 experts simultaneously and still hold the upper hand. So this is Zero Wing's strength? Amazing! With this, Starlink and the various superpowers will have to act more humbly. From how leisurely Violet Cloud had defeated Miracle Dragon, it was evident she still had strength to spare. This meant that even though Zero Wing's side had 1 Tier 4 expert less than Starlink's side, the latter still wouldn't hold any advantages. Beautifully done. Unyielding Heart praised as he looked up at Violet Cloud. Now that Starlink's side has 1 less Tier 4, even if Lu Xinglua goes back on his word, we still have a much greater chance of rescuing our people. Illusory words nodded in agreement with Unyielding Heart. This duel held great importance for both sides. If Lu Xinglua handled this matter poorly, he would become the laughingstock of God's domain. After all, Lu Xinglua had overreached himself. He had actually planned to rely on this opportunity to elevate Starlink into an existence on par with the 5 great super guilds. Only, his grand plan had already been foiled right at the very first step. If he weren't standing in public right now, Lu Xinglua would have most likely spat out blood already. When everyone thought Lu Xinglua was going to lose his mind, the man actually smiled. Good. Very good. As expected of one of Zero Wing's peak experts. Your strength is truly astonishing, Lu Xinglua said, chuckling as he looked up at Violet Cloud. Fine. We'll let your people go. Guild leader. Sword Demon, who had also reached Tier 4, was stunned by Lu Xinglua's words. He never thought that Lu Xinglua would release Zero Wing's people so decisively. They'll grow even more fearless if we let their people go. It doesn't matter, Lu Xinglua said as he glanced at Sword Demon nonchalantly. Release them. Sword Demon had no choice but to release the 3 guilds' captured members. The next moment, Alluring Summer, Shadow Sword, Mu Lingsha, Blue Gown, and several other players were released from Starlink's guild hall. From the time they emerged from the building until they walked out of the residence's entrance, none of Starlink's or the various superpowers members stopped them. He's releasing them without a fight? Unyielding Heart was stunned when he saw Mu Lingsha and the others free. Honestly, Unyielding Heart didn't believe any of the words Lu Xinglua said before. To his disbelief, Lu Xinglua had actually gone through with his promise and released the captured players without a fight. However, as soon as the bindings on Alluring Summer and the others were removed, Alluring Summer shouted, "Run! Commander, you guys need to get away fast. It's a trap." Unfortunately, as soon as Alluring Summer finished speaking, a 3-fold magic array suddenly appeared in the sky above Starlink's residence. The magic array instantly expanded and covered a 1,000-yard radius. Apart from Starlink's and the various superpowers members, everyone caught within the barrier felt their bodies growing heavier. Even Tier 4 players like Unyielding Heart found their basic attributes falling by 30%. Run? You think you can run away today? Lu Xinglua sneered as he looked at the members of Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor. I've released your people, so don't say I didn't abide by our agreement. However, whether you can leave this place alive is another matter altogether. Oh, by the way, this magic barrier is a master barrier. Let alone you Tier 4s, even a superior mythic monster can't break out from it. At the same time as Lu Xinglua finished speaking, 3 NPCs flew out of Starlink's residence and looked down at the 3 guild's members from the air. With the appearance of these 3 NPCs, Violet Cloud's starry domain was instantly overwhelmed by a much stronger and violent mana domain. As a result, her starry domain contracted to only 50 yards away from herself. Meanwhile, upon seeing these 3 NPCs, everyone present gasped involuntarily. Victor Palom, Secret Hand Association Elder. Tier 4 Great Wizard. Level 160 HP 180 million. Claire Saverin, Secret Hand Legion Vice Commander. Tier 4 Sky Knight. Level 160 HP 330 million. Melt Cabra, Secret Hand Legion Commander. Tier 4 Elemental Hunter. Level 162 HP 270 million. 3 Tier 4 NPCs. How is this possible? The various major powers members gaped in shock at these 3 NPCs. Although they knew that Starlink had worked together with the Secret Hand Association to capture the 3 guilds' executives, they had thought that only 1 Tier 4 NPC was aiding Starlink. Now 3 Tier 4 NPCs had appeared. Their combined combat power was enough to destroy even Sky Spring City. Melt Cabra, an elderly man apparently in his 50s who carried a crystalline bow, turned to Lu Xinglua and said, "Guild leader Xinglua, you've done well this time. Our association will help you take control of the Secret Covenant Tower as agreed." "Thank you, Commander Melt." Lu Xinglua beamed at Melt Cabra's words. Lu Xinglua's goal since the very beginning had been the 3 guilds' Tier 4 members. The main reason he had Miracle Dragon partake in a duel was to create a distraction, while the Secret Hand Association set up the magic barrier. After all, setting up such a powerful barrier would create powerful mana fluctuations. Only a duel between 2 Tier 4 players could conceal these mana fluctuations. Hence, Lu Xinglua never really cared whether Miracle Dragon won or lost the duel. How vicious of Lu Xinglua. He was planning to wipe out the 3 guilds' top combatants all along. It seems Zero Wing's side is finished. A force of 3 Tier 4 NPCs is basically unstoppable in the Twin Towers Kingdom. At this time, everyone already understood that this was a trap Starlink set up for the 3 guilds. So long as the 3 guilds' top combatants got annihilated here, the 3 guilds would be finished. They would no longer have the ability to resist Starlink and the various superpowers. The complexions of the 3 guilds members darkened when they saw this situation. How is this possible? How did Lu Xinglua recruit the help of so many Tier 4 NPCs? Unyielding Heart couldn't help despairing as he looked at the 3 Tier 4 NPCs in the air. According to the information they obtained, only 1 Tier 4 NPC had been present when Mu Lingsha and the others were captured. They had originally planned for him and Illusory Words to work together to pin down this Tier 4 NPC, while Violet Cloud and Fire Dance went up against Starlink's Tier 4 players. Now the number of Tier 4 NPCs they had to face had tripled. Moreover, they were even caught inside a master barrier. They couldn't escape even if they wanted to. While the 3 guilds members were at a loss as to what to do, Melt Cabra glanced at them. "Capture Zero Wings members. Kill everyone else using soul attacks. I want to let Black Flame know the consequences of provoking the Secret Hand Association." Melt Cabra commanded the 2 people beside him. In response, Elder Victor Palom chuckled and said, "Rest assured, Commander Melt, none of Zero Wings members will escape today." Melt Cabra's words stunned the spectating crowd. These NPCs are here for Zero Wing? Crap! What did Zero Wing do to have an NPC force aim for their lives? At this time, let alone the various major powers, even Unyielding Heart and Illusory Words were stunned. An NPC force had actually mobilized such a powerful party, just to take revenge on Feng? However, before Unyielding Heart and Illusory Words could react to this piece of information, the 3 NPCs made their move, splitting up and charging at Violet Cloud and Fire Dance. "Zero Wing, this is the consequence of your sins." Lu Xinglua burst into maniacal laughter when he saw the 3 NPCs taking action. "I didn't even do anything this time." Previously, Lu Xinglua had still felt quite troubled by the 3 guilds' resistance. However, Feng had offended the Secret Hand Association on Dragonheart Island, which, in turn, prompted the association to seek a partnership with Lu Xinglua. He had nearly gone crazy from joy back then. Now that 3 of the association's Tier 4 NPCs were taking action, there was no way Zero Wings members could escape. Now all he had to do was wait for Zero Wing's destruction and take over Zero Wing's possessions. However, just as the three NPCs were about to reach Fire Dance and her companions, who were prepared to fight to the death, a sword light suddenly appeared out of nowhere on the battlefield. This lightning-fast sword light cut straight at Melt Cabra, who led the charge against Zero Wing's members. However, Melt Cabra was no ordinary Tier 4 NPC. Quickly responding to the attack, he used his crystalline bow as a melee weapon and struck the approaching sword light. Boom! An explosion occurred, and space within a radius of several dozen yards shattered. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The elemental hunter went flying over 100 yards away, a damage exceeding 1 million appearing above his head. Secret Hand Association, how bold of you! I didn't bother picking a fight with you in Dragonheart City, yet you actually have the gall to come and pick a fight in my territory? It seems you people are tired of living just like Sabrid. Before anyone could react to the sudden attack, a cold voice echoed throughout the battlefield. Everyone turned to the voice's origin, curious to find out who had sent Melt Cabra flying. The next moment, what entered everyone's eyes was a cloaked man walking out of the crowd. The man wielded a golden sword decorated with crimson runes, and his frightening aura made them feel as if the god of death had descended onto the battlefield. Black Flame. Chapter 2860. Nobody is leaving. Everyone couldn't help doubting their eyes when they saw the cloaked man. After all, Melt Cabra was a level 162 Tier 4 NPC. Although he was only a Tier 4 ranger, which wasn't a strength-oriented class, he still possessed a massive advantage in terms of levels. He simply wasn't an existence current players could go up against. Nevertheless, Feng had sent the elemental hunter flying with one hit. How frightening was his strength! He's actually that Black Flame? Standing in the spectating crowd, the robust man from the Silver Lion Adventurer team was astonished when he discovered Feng's identity. His team members were similarly stunned. They never imagined that the stranger their commander decided to befriend would actually be a big shot. Moreover, it was even a big shot capable of shaking the entire God's domain. Guild leader Fire Dance and the others were also surprised when they saw Feng approaching them. They hadn't thought that Feng had already returned. Brother Black Flame, you've really made us wait. Unyielding Heart revealed a bitter smile when he saw Feng. Although not much time had passed since they parted ways at the ruined mountain range, it felt like months and years had gone by on their side as the pressure they faced from the various superpowers increased by the day. Fortunately, their peak experts had found several Tier 4 legacy lands while exploring level 130 maps. As a result, their three guilds managed to produce 3 Tier 4 players quickly, instantly alleviating the pressure they faced at the Twin Towers Kingdom by a large margin. They were also continuously obtaining complete Tier 3 legacies from the Secret Covenant Tower, which allowed their guilds to produce Tier 3 players rapidly. As a result, their 3 guilds had managed to last until today, albeit by the skin of their teeth. Feng's return had undoubtedly increased their staying power. When Illusory Words saw Feng, she too heaved a deep sigh of relief. They had been fighting long and hard just to endure until this moment. Meanwhile, Feng's appearance also caused a stir among the members of Starlink's faction. None of them had expected Feng to reappear in such a sudden and powerful manner. Black Flame, you're finally willing to show yourself. Lu Xinglua laughed as he looked at Feng. I've been waiting for a long time. Today, I'll let you see Zero Wing perish before your eyes. Everyone attack. In truth, Lu Xinglua was slightly surprised by Feng's arrival. He never thought that Feng would be able to return from the sealed Dragonheart city so quickly. Lu Xinglua had originally planned to use the annihilation of Fire Dance and the others to force Feng to come forward. Now he no longer had to trouble himself. As soon as Lu Xinglua finished speaking, Sword Demon, Wind Demon and Tengu, who had all reached Tier 4, moved to surround Zero Wing's members. Only, shortly after the trio exited the residence's entrance, 2 figures intercepted them. You'll need to beat the 2 of us first before you proceed. Lifeless Thorn said as he grabbed the spear slung on his back and swept it at the 3 enemies before him. At this time, Lifeless Thorn and Solitary 9 stopped concealing their life auras. 2 more Tier 4 auras spread across the battlefield, stunning Sword Demon's group. 2 more Tier 4s? How many Tier 4s does Zero Wing have? The various major powers exclaimed in surprise when they sensed lifeless Thorns and Solitary Nine's auras. At this stage of the game, Tier 4 players were still as rare as a phoenix's feather. A superpower would be fortunate to have even one Tier 4 player. Yet, based on what they could see now, Zero Wing actually had 5 Tier 4 players already. Even the 5 great super guilds didn't have such a force yet. You people from Zero Wing are indeed capable. After glancing at lifeless Thorn and Solitary Nine, Lu Xinglua turned to Feng and sneered, "Unfortunately, all of you are inside a master barrier right now. Even if you have more Tier 4s on your side, you still don't have a chance at victory." Upon hearing this, the various onlookers snapped out of their daze and very much agreed with Lu Xinglua's words. "March, you go as well." 1,000 Miles commanded as he looked at Silent March. "Make sure Black Flame doesn't leave this place alive. We'll be in trouble afterward otherwise." "Yes, sir." Nodding, Silent March took out her staff and joined Sword Demon's trio. Seeing that Silent March, a Tier 4 necromancer, was taking action as well, the spectating players sighed subconsciously. Although Starlink's side was still outnumbered, it had the help of a master barrier and 3 Tier 4 NPCs. Zero Wing's side stood no chance at all. However, before Silent March could arrive before lifeless Thorn and Solitary Nine, Feng suddenly slashed at the sky. World Breaker! The next moment, a dazzling brilliance shot into the sky and instantly penetrated the magic barrier. Subsequently, the barrier shattered, and the overwhelming pressure Zero Wing's members felt disappeared. "What master barrier?" Looking at Lu Xinglua, Feng asked calmly, "Do you mean this broken thing?" At Feng's words, silence enveloped the entire battlefield. Lu Xinglua, in particular, was utterly thunderstruck as he looked at the dissipating barrier. Impossible! Even a superior mythic monster would have a difficult time breaking this barrier. How could he just... At this time, Lu Xinglua felt as if he was having a nightmare. Either that or the heavens were playing a trick on him. "Guild leader, are you still just a Tier 4 player?" At this time, let alone Lu Xinglua and the various superpowers members, even Fire Dance and the others gaped in shock at this scene. This was a barrier capable of trapping superior mythic monsters. Yet Feng had destroyed it with one slash. Not good. They can run away now that the barrier is broken. Reacting to the situation quickly, 1,000 Miles looked at Lu Xinglua and urged, "Guild leader Xinglua, we need to figure out a plan fast." If a Tier 4 player wanted to escape, even Tier 4 NPCs would have trouble stopping them. Meanwhile, if their faction failed to capture Zero Wing's members alive, they would have a much harder time dealing with the 3 guilds afterward. On the other hand, Unyielding Heart and Illusory Words breathed out a sigh of relief at this situation. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. You with the magic barrier gone, so long as they scattered and fled, the 3 Tier 4 NPCs wouldn't be able to capture them. Moreover, they were still inside Sky Spring City. If the 3 Tier 4 NPCs caused a commotion, Sky Spring City's Tier 4 magistrate would definitely intervene. At that time, the magistrate would be able to pin down at least one of Secret Hand's NPCs. However, before Lu Xinglua and 1,000 Miles could issue commands, Feng jumped into the air above Starlink's residence and scanned the crowd beneath him. This situation confused the various spectating players. They couldn't understand why Feng had approached Starlink's residence instead of running away. "Run away." Looking at 1,000 Miles, Feng laughed and said, "Do you think you're the only ones capable of summoning Tier 4 NPCs? Nobody is leaving today. All of you will stay here." After saying so, Feng took out 2 summon guard scrolls from his bag and activated them. Chapter 28:17 Reversal. As Feng chanted the incantation to activate the summon guard scrolls, 2 magic arrays appeared before him. 1 second later, 2 figures emerged from these magic arrays. Along with the appearance of these 2 figures, everyone present felt an unprecedented pressure weighing down their body. Tier 4 personal guards? How did he do it? The various major powers members gasped when they saw the 2 new figures in the air. Many players owned personal guards in God's domain, but those capable of owning Tier 4 personal guards at this stage of the game could be counted on one's fingers. This was because NPCs had much more difficulty getting promoted to Tier 4 than players. Even Fine Gold guards had no more than a 25% chance of success. And in the event of failure, these personal guards would have to wait 1 whole month before they could challenge their promotion quest again. Moreover, the success rate wouldn't change in the slightest. Yet now, Feng had actually summoned 2 Tier 4 personal guards. Meanwhile, these 2 personal guards were none other than Kite and Anna. As the 2 NPCs had been busy challenging their Tier 4 promotion quests previously, Feng had not summoned them for quite some time now. Fortunately, Kite and Anna possessed incredibly high growth potentials. Both of them had successfully gotten promoted to Tier 4, and their current levels even surpassed Feng's by a large margin. At this time, Kite had already reached level 146, whereas Anna was at level 149. While their levels were still lower than the Secret Hand Association's 3 NPCs, the difference was negligible. After reaching Tier 4, the main factors that allowed Tier 4 NPCs to undergo qualitative improvements were fragmented legendary weapons and equipment, control over mana, and the number of Tier 4 skills and spells learned. With Kite and Anna's arrival, even a fool could tell that the tables had turned. Previously, after Starlink and the various superpowers lost the support of their master barrier, their disadvantage in numbers meant they could only rely on the Secret Hand Association's NPCs to overwhelm Zero Wing's side. However, Kite and Anna could fend off at least 2 of the association's Tier 4 NPCs. And with the growing commotion, Sky Spring City's Tier 4 magistrate would most likely come to help soon. Hence, Starlink and the various superpowers no longer had any advantages at this time. In fact, they were even at a disadvantage since Zero Wing's side had 3 more Tier 4 players than they did. A difference of 3 Tier 4 players might not seem like much, but it was already more than enough to elicit despair in Starlink and the various superpowers. This was because even 10,000 Tier 3 players wouldn't be enough to go against 3 Tier 4 players. That would only result in a one-sided massacre. Moreover, with the seal over Sky Spring City still in effect, the only way players could teleport out of the city was through the teleportation hall. This situation was considerably disadvantageous for Starlink's side. When Lu Xinglue recognized the situation, his complexion turned indescribably ugly. He had never dreamed that Feng would be able to reverse the situation, and even put him in dire straits. Guild leader Xinglue, what should we do now? If it comes down to a fight, I'm afraid our side. Thousand Miles asked anxiously as he looked at Lu Xinglue. Lu Xinglue had full responsibility for this operation. Miracle and the various superpowers were simply here to show support. After all, Lu Xinglue had repeatedly guaranteed that he would take down Zero Wing this time. Then the various superpowers would divide the Secret Covenant Tower and the 3 guilds' territories among themselves. Now, before Miracle even took a cut out of Zero Wing, it had already lost Miracle Dragon. Moreover, at this rate, even Silent March and Thousand Miles himself would most likely perish. I understand. Sighing helplessly, Lu Xinglue said. I originally thought that these means would already be enough to take down Zero Wing. It seems I still have to request their help in the end. Request their help? At Lu Xinglue's words, realization dawned upon Thousand Miles. He then looked at a nearby team of several dozen players and muttered, could it be? Thousand Miles had heard of the mysterious guild known as 100 Ghosts. This was a guild that showed no respect or fear for even the 5 great super guilds. He never thought that Lu Xinglue would actually have such a deep connection with 100 Ghosts. That's right. It's them. Lu Xinglue nodded. He then looked at the handsome youth leading 100 Ghosts' team and called out, Brother Abyss, I'm afraid I'll have to bother you for help. Once we get out of this predicament, Starlink will agree to all your conditions. Good. I've been waiting a long time for these words. Guild leader Xinglue. Awakened Abyss smiled when he heard Lu Xinglue's promise. Since you've thought it through already, 100 Ghosts naturally won't sit back and do nothing. Thank you, Brother Abyss. Lu Xinglue breathed out a sigh of relief. Feng had really boxed Lu Xinglue into a corner this time. Since they were inside Sky Spring City, which also happened to be Zero Wing's territory, Starlink's members would all end up jailed if they died or got captured inside the city. Meanwhile, the prison sentence could last anywhere from a few days to over a dozen days. This absolutely wasn't an outcome Lu Xinglue could tolerate. Now that 100 Ghosts had agreed to intervene, though, Starlink would escape this predicament. Lu Xinglue knew very clearly what kind of power was backing 100 Ghosts. It simply wasn't something the main continent's superpowers could go up against. The various major powers present overheard the conversation between Lu Xinglua and Awakened Abyss. However, they couldn't understand why Lu Xinglua, Starlink's guild leader, would ask Awakened Abyss for help. Moreover, Lu Xinglua relaxed visibly when he heard the handsome youth's positive response. Who are those people? Lu Xinglua is actually begging them for help? How ignorant are you guys? That's 100 ghosts. I never imagined that Starlink would manage to partner up with 100 ghosts. Starlink really hit the jackpot this time. I heard that even the 5 great super guilds have to show respect to 100 ghosts. Although the 5 great super guilds initially sent a lot of famous experts to pick a fight with 100 ghosts, none of those experts returned alive. Many of the major powers present were ignorant of 100 ghosts' existence. After hearing the explanation of some well-informed people, they quickly understood how extraordinary an existence 100 ghosts was. On the other hand, unyielding heart and illusory words couldn't help making ugly expressions. Damn it! Why would 100 ghosts partner with Starlink? Frustration filled unyielding heart's eyes when he heard Awakened Abyss agreeing to Lu Xinglua's request. After 100 ghosts made its debut on the main continent, his guild leader had received an astonishing secret message. Afterward, his guild leader warned everyone in the guild not to provoke 100 ghosts' members. Otherwise, there would be unimaginable consequences. Initially, Unyielding Heart thought that 100 ghosts had merely accepted Starlink's invitation, so that they could challenge some of the experts here. It never occurred to him that 100 ghosts actually planned to partner with Starlink. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Yu Illusory Words was similarly filled with frustration. After seeing Feng summon his personal guards, she thought they would be able to deal a heavy blow to Starlink and the various superpowers. However, now that 100 ghosts, an existence that even the 5 great super guilds feared, had agreed to step in for Starlink, if their 3 guilds insisted on taking action against Starlink, they would make an enemy of 100 ghosts. The next moment after Awakened Abyss agreed to Lu Xinglua's request, he looked up at Feng and said, Guild Leader Black Flame, 100 Ghosts has some dealings with Starlink. Can you spare Starlink out of respect for 100 Ghosts? If Zero Wing needs help in the future, I, Awakened Abyss, will definitely lend a helping hand. As soon as Awakened Abyss finished speaking, everyone present turned to Feng, who was still hovering in midair. They all wondered how he would answer. Although sparing Starlink here would mean losing an opportunity to deal a heavy blow to Starlink, Zero Wing would gain 100 Ghosts' favor. This wouldn't necessarily be a losing transaction. After all, 100 Ghosts was a mysterious guild that even the 5 great super guilds had to show respect to. Gaining the favor of such an existence could bring many benefits. Respect? Favor? Feng laughed as he looked at Awakened Abyss. When Starlink was pushing our 3 guilds into a dead end earlier, why didn't I see you standing up for us at that time? Yet, now that Starlink is in a desperate situation, you're telling us to let them go? Do you think my respect is so cheap? What will you do if I don't give it to you? Chapter 28:18. You think too highly of yourself. When Feng finished speaking, silence enveloped the entire battlefield. Nobody had expected that Feng would show no regard at all for 100 ghosts. A cold glint flashed in Awakened Abyss's eyes at Feng's response. Guild Leader Black Flame, my suggestion is beneficial for both our sides. If 100 ghosts interferes, setting all else aside, just in terms of number of tier 45, Zero Wing won't have much of an advantage, Awakened Abyss said coldly. If you insist on remaining obstinate, I'll have to take it as Zero Wing having hostile intentions toward 100 ghosts. After saying so, Awakened Abyss stopped concealing his life aura. Immediately, a life aura rivaling that of the Secret Hand Association's Tier 4 NPCs spread across the battlefield. Simultaneously, Awakened Abyss revealed the glow effect of his equipment, the result making the surrounding spectators gasp. This was because Awakened Abyss was actually fully geared in epic equipment. Moreover, apart from a full set of epic equipment, Awakened Abyss's longsword was also extraordinary, sporting 6 gleaming gemstones inlaid into it. And although the longsword looked old-fashioned, the aura it exuded was much stronger than that of the epic equipment he wore by a large margin. Meanwhile, the short-haired woman standing beside Awakened Abyss also stopped concealing her life aura and equipment. And like Awakened Abyss, She was fully geared in epic equipment and carried a battle axe that rivaled Awakened Abyss's longsword. Aren't those two a little too well equipped? No wonder even the 5 great super guilds are wary of 100 ghosts. Even Starlink and the various superpowers can't afford to arm their members to the teeth with such excellent items. When the various major powers saw the dazzling glow enveloping Awakened Abyss and the short-haired beauty, they were startled. Everyone present had seen epic weapons and equipment before. However, trying to fully gear a player with epic items that suited them was incredibly difficult. Yet, 100 Ghosts had managed to do so for 2 players. One could see just how powerful 100 Ghosts was through this point alone. Hence, it was clearly unwise for Zero Wing to make an enemy of 100 Ghosts at this time. Hostile intentions? Feng laughed as he looked at Awakened Abyss. You think too highly of yourself. Since you wish to stand on Starlink's side, then die with them. After saying so, Feng unsheathed the Light of 2 Worlds and executed a downward slash at Awakened Abyss. First sword Light Shadow. An illusory greatsword over 100 meters long appeared in the sky and descended toward Awakened Abyss and the short-haired woman. Space ruptured in the greatsword's wake, and Awakened Abyss and the woman suddenly found themselves having difficulty moving. How dare he? When Lu Xinglua and the various superpowers executives saw this scene, they gaped in shock. They never thought that Feng would even attack 100 Ghosts' envoys. Crazy bastard! Awakened Abyss revealed a startled expression when he saw the illusory greatsword. He hadn't expected Feng to take such prompt action. Moreover, he found the power of Feng's attack stifling. Even the Tier 4 NPCs he had faced before couldn't execute such a powerful attack. Almost by instinct, Awakened Abyss took out a crystal and shattered it without hesitation. 2 barriers instantly appeared before Awakened Abyss and the short-haired woman, protecting them. Boom! When the illusory greatsword came into contact with the first barrier, the barrier immediately cracked. Only after the first barrier had shattered completely did the illusory greatsword disappear. Awakened Abyss and the short-haired woman stared at this outcome in disbelief. This dual-layer barrier was the product of a Tier 4 curse, a tool they carried for emergencies. Even Tier 4 NPCs couldn't break the generated barriers, yet Feng had shattered 1 layer. In other words, Feng needed only 1 more attack to destroy this Tier 4 defensive curse. We're leaving. Awakened Abyss commanded his team to retreat without hesitation. His mana technique is too powerful. Only the elders can deal with him. We won't be able to stop his 3rd attack. As soon as Awakened Abyss finished speaking, 100 Ghosts' members promptly scattered and fled. Awakened Abyss and the short-haired woman leaped into the air and made a beeline for Sky Spring City's gate. They dared not try to put up a fight. It seems you're not completely inept, Feng commented indifferently as he looked at the remaining barrier before him. He then looked at Awakened Abysses and the short-haired woman's fleeing figures and continued, however, since you dare interfere in Zero Wing's matters, I'll have one of you stay behind today to teach you a lesson. After saying so, Feng suddenly disappeared from where he hovered. When he reappeared, he was in front of Awakened Abyss. Feng's appearance shocked Awakened Abyss. Feng was too fast. His movement speed in the air practically rivaled a flying mount's. However, before Awakened Abyss could react to the situation, Feng swung the Light of 2 Worlds once more. It was evident he had chosen Awakened Abyss as his target of detention. Spatial Slash. Black Flame. Unwilling to take any chances, Awakened Abyss activated his Berserk skill, boosting his basic attributes by a large margin. Now, he could go toe-to-toe against a superior mythic monster of the same level. Don't go too far. Awakened Abyss used his full strength to counter Feng's attack, his long sword radiating a colorful brilliance as it swung to meet Feng's Light of 2 Worlds. Now, the power of his attack was not the slightest bit weaker than that of the light shadow Feng executed before. Boom! 2 sky-splitting spatial tears appeared when the 2 swords collided. Immediately afterward, Awakened Abyss crashed into the ground below like a cannonball, and his HP plummeted. In the blink of an eye, Awakened Abyss's HP, which exceeded 20 million, fell to 0, and the youth became deader than dead. Abyss! The short-haired woman was stunned when she saw Awakened Abyss killed. Awakened Abyss was one of the top 3 experts among 100 Ghosts' younger generation, yet he actually couldn't withstand even 1 attack from Feng. When Lu Xinglua and the others standing inside Starlink's residence saw this scene, they too were flabbergasted. They never thought Feng would actually kill Awakened Abyss without hesitation, showing no fear of 100 ghosts whatsoever. Run away. Nobody knew who said these words. However, as soon as they appeared, the tens of thousands of players inside Starlink's residence came to a tacit agreement and began fleeing immediately. Even the Secret Hand Association's NPCs had grim expressions when they saw Feng's might. We're leaving, Melt Cabra commanded, understanding that the situation was no longer in their favor. With just the three of them here, they would be helpless against Feng. Immediately afterward, the Secret Hand Association's 3 Tier 4 NPCs turned to flee Sky Spring City. You want to escape? Dream on. Looking at Kite and Anna, Feng commanded, kill all of these people. Yes, sir. Kite and Anna, who had remained on standby until now, responded respectfully. They then split up and took independent action. The next moment, Anna set out in pursuit of Melt Cabra's group. As for Kite, he joined Lifeless Thorn and Solitary 9 in dealing with Starlink's Tier 4 players. You think you can stop us by yourself? You must be tired of living. Melt Cabra was incensed when he saw Anna coming to block his group by herself. Although Anna was also a Tier 4 existence, she was merely level 149. She would have trouble stopping even one of them, let alone all three. She was basically insulting their strength by coming at them alone. However, before Melt Cabra could say anything more, Anna unleashed her mana domain. Immediately, Anna's mana domain enveloped the entire Sky Spring City, transforming the city into a world of black and white. Under the effects of her mana domain, Starlink's and the various superpowers Tier 3 players couldn't even budge. As for Melt Cabra's group of 3, they felt immense pressure pressing down on them, subjecting the mana within their bodies to a powerful suppression. The 3 of them could barely extend their own mana domains 20 yards from themselves. The might of Anna's mana domain was simply unbelievable. Before Melt Cabra and the other 2 could react, countless pitch-black chains assaulted them from all directions. Simultaneously, innumerable holy swords appeared in the sky and shot at all 3 of them. Despite the trio working together and doing their best to fend off the attacks, they actually remained at a complete disadvantage. Anna thoroughly displayed her strength as an epic guard, and it was only a matter of time before she defeated the 3 hostile NPCs. Lu Xinglua, you should follow your friends as well. Feng instantly appeared in front of Lu Xinglua and swung the light of 2 worlds at him. He gave Lu Xinglua no room to even catch a breather. Damn it! Damn it! Black Flame, I'll make you pay for this. 100 ghosts will make you pay for this too. Lu Xinglua gritted his teeth and shattered one of the crystal rings he wore. The next moment, a strange gray space formed around Lu Xinglua and thoroughly negated Feng's attack. However, Lu Xinglua also let out an agonized scream in the gray space. It was evident that getting caught within this gray space wasn't entirely pleasant for Lu Xinglua. A second later, the gray space disappeared together with Lu Xinglua. He sure knows how to run quickly. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Feng wasn't particularly surprised when Lu Xinglua escaped. After all, Lu Xinglua was Starlink's guild leader. It would be strange if he didn't have a few powerful life-saving items. Fortunately, Feng had already achieved his goal in coming here. After today's event, Starlink and the various superpowers would lose tens of thousands of Tier 3 experts and many Tier 4 experts. Moreover, even if these experts died, they would still be detained for several days in Sky Spring City's prison once they respawned. Less than 10 minutes later, with Anna and Kite's assistance, Zero Wings members annihilated the Secret Hand Association's 3 Tier 4 NPCs and the various superpowers Tier 3 and Tier 4 experts. The spectating powers were awestruck to witness the deaths of the various superpowers experts. None of them had ever dreamed that the superpowers crusade against the Secret Covenant Tower would come to such an end. Zero Wings' hidden strength also exceeded their imagination. The guild simply wasn't in existence the various superpowers could go up against. This astonishing piece of news quickly spread all over the Twin Towers Kingdom. It even reached the neighboring kingdoms and empires, shocking the various player forces there. Chapter 28 19 Changes in the Twin Towers Kingdom. In a certain border town of the Fire Dragon Empire, At this time, a 3,000-man team of Tier 3 players was resting in 2 bars on the main street. All the town residents, be they players or NPCs, were extremely afraid of this team. This was because the average level of this team was level 125, 3 levels higher than the average level of Tier 3 players in the Fire Dragon Empire. Meanwhile, leading this powerful team of Tier 3 players was a long-haired woman with a heroic air. When the players looked at this white-clad woman, their gaze held awe and respect. This woman was none other than the first player in mythology to have gotten promoted to Tier 4, Cold Shadow, who was now mythology's first vice-guild leader. In addition, she had even reached level 133, 11 levels higher than the average Tier 3 player. The cold and sharp aura she exuded was so powerful that even Tier 3 players over 100 yards away shuddered involuntarily. Vice-guild leader, news just came in from the Twin Towers Kingdom. Whitefeather, who was now a level 130 Tier 4 Guardian Knight, reported to Cold Shadow. Starlink suffered a tragic defeat. Moreover, because of Black Flame's sudden appearance, with the exception of Lu Xinglaw, none of the various superpowers experts escaped. Nearly 20,000 Tier 3 experts were penalized with 10 days confinement in Sky Spring City's prison. He's finally willing to show himself. Cold Shadow, who was resting quietly with her eyes shut, wasn't the slightest bit surprised when she heard Whitefeather's report. Unfortunately, although Black Flame dealt a heavy blow to Starlink and the various superpowers, he still let the key person escape. Zero Wing will most likely face a lot of trouble after this. After all, the person standing behind Lu Xingluo isn't some random pushover. That person is also adamant in acquiring the Secret Covenant Tower. According to our insider reports, Black Flame killed 100 Ghosts' awakened abyss, Whitefeather said in a quieter tone. In fact, out of 100 Ghosts' team of several dozen players, only Vice Commander Jade Leaf managed to escape. This bit of news had Cold Shadow opening her eyes in shock. Has Black Flame lost his mind? He actually killed Awakened Abyss? Does he not know Awakened Abyss's identity? Awakened Abyss was a talent 100 Ghosts placed great importance on. The youth was so important that 100 Ghosts had even tasked Jade Leaf, a Tier 4 expert, to accompany him as his bodyguard. Meanwhile, 100 Ghosts was in existence that even the 5 great super guilds dared not offend. The power this mysterious guild wielded simply defied common sense. At this point, the only thing the 5 great super guilds could do was form partnerships with 100 Ghosts. They absolutely couldn't afford to make an enemy of the guild. This was something Odin repeatedly emphasized. Hence, everyone in mythology was currently doing their best to avoid 100 Ghosts' people. Yet, Feng had done the exact opposite. Not only did he choose to oppose 100 Ghosts, but he had even killed Awakened Abyss. When 100 Ghosts learned of this, the guild would definitely go into a frenzy. In that case, should we take action now? Whitefeather asked. Zero Wing was a guild that mythology had to destroy no matter what. Now that Feng had dealt a heavy blow to Starlink and the various superpowers, these guilds definitely wouldn't just let the matter lie. In fact, they might even put everything on the line to fight Zero Wing after all. These superpowers had lost so many Tier 3 experts already. If they still couldn't secure the Secret Covenant Tower, recovering from this loss within a short period would be impossible. Not to mention, 100 Ghosts would most likely retaliate against Zero Wing as well. At that time, a spectacular battle would definitely occur at the Secret Covenant Tower, which would be the perfect opportunity for mythology to take action. No, it still isn't time. Cold Shadow shook her head. We have just recently completed that inferior legendary quest and obtained a mana body legacy. We need to digest this legacy first. It wouldn't be too late to take action once we have improved our mana bodies. After all, when it comes to matters regarding the mana body, Black Flame's side has already made significant progress. I doubt we are a match for him in this regard even now. I understand. I'll notify the others about this and have them head to the Divine Cave, Whitefeather said, nodding. There's no need for us to head to the Divine Cave yet. We are merely learning a legacy. We can learn it anywhere, Cold Shadow said. After reading a message one of her subordinates just sent her, she smiled faintly and continued, moreover, if we head to the Secret Covenant Tower now, we might get an opportunity to understand 100 Ghosts' strength. 100 Ghosts is taking action already? Whitefeather was surprised when she heard Cold Shadow's words. The strength Zero Wing had displayed thus far was incredibly terrifying. The guild had not only 5 Tier 4 players but also 2 Tier 4 personal guards, who were far superior to the average Tier 4 NPC. At this stage of the game, even the 5 great super guilds could only resort to a war of attrition with Zero Wing. In a frontal confrontation, their chances of defeating Zero Wing would be 0. Hence, White Feather found it incredible that 100 Ghosts would retaliate against Zero Wing, right after losing several dozen of its top combatants. That's not entirely true, Cold Shadow said, chuckling. A hint of anticipation appearing in her eyes, she added. You'll understand once we get there. If Zero Wing doesn't abandon the Secret Covenant Tower this time, it'll most likely be doomed forever. After Cold Shadow finished speaking, White Feather promptly organized a group of peak experts, and they accompanied Cold Shadow to the Secret Covenant Tower. Twin Towers Kingdom, Sky Spring City. Guild leader, we're done compiling the list of items we got, Fire Dance reported as she approached Feng. With an excited look on her face, she continued, we obtained close to 20,000 weapons and equipment from this battle, including over 6,000 level 110 plus fine gold weapons and equipment and over 2,000 level 110 plus dark gold weapons and equipment. The rest are all level 110 plus secret silver weapons and equipment. This harvest will mitigate a significant portion of the losses we suffered previously. Currently, Fire Dance, Yulan, and Melancholic Smile were managing the affairs of the entire guild. Dealing with the guild's weapon stockpile gave Fire Dance massive headaches. Previously, when she had merely been commanding Zero Wing's main force, she hadn't known just how important it was for the guild to have a sufficient stockpile of weapons and equipment. However, after taking over Gentle Snow's and Aqua Rose's responsibilities and repeatedly clashing with the various superpowers, she finally understood what a guild's foundation referred to. Originally, she believed that a guild's foundation referred to the number of experts a guild possessed. However, after the various superpowers began waging war against Zero Wing, she realized that what truly served as a guild's foundation were weapons and equipment. If not for the Candlelight trading firm having a sufficiently large number of lifestyle players, Zero Wing would have long since run out of weapons and equipment. And if that happened, members would definitely withdraw from the guild in droves. After all, nobody would want to fight for a guild that couldn't even arm them with weapons and equipment. Give half of the weapons and equipment to Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul, Feng said, smiling. I believe they haven't been faring well recently either. These weapons and equipment should help them cope with their troubles. Feng had a very thorough understanding of the issues involved in guild wars. When he led Shadow in his previous life, there had been instances when the guild's warehouse had only bronze weapons and equipment. Back then, Shadow had only been a small guild. If a superpower were to face a situation where its warehouse had only bronze weapons and equipment, everyone in the guild would have long since quit. After all, even if guild players died and lost levels, so long as they had sufficiently good weapons and equipment, they could quickly recover their levels. However, without weapons and equipment, they might as well be independent players. At the very least, hostile forces wouldn't persecute them. Before Feng could issue any more commands, Illusory Words approached him with a grim look on her face. Guild leader Black Flame, a big problem appeared in Barren Forest City, near the Secret Covenant Tower. Illusory Words said anxiously. According to our scouts, over 1 million foe saint monsters have appeared there, and are making their way toward the Secret Covenant Tower. The majority of them are level 135 Great Lords, and there are also roughly 1,000 level 140 plus mythic ranked foe saint monsters. 1,000 mythic monsters? Fire Dance was stunned when she heard what Illusory Words said. For a moment, she even wondered if her ears were working properly. Normally, it would be incredibly difficult to come across even one mythic monster. Not to mention, monsters had gained the ability to think for themselves after the major system update. This had increased their combat standards by a large margin and improved their capacity for cooperation. Under normal circumstances, a Tier 4 expert would have to flee if they came across 2 or 3 mythic monsters of the same level simultaneously. And with around 10 mythic monsters, one could even attack towns and cities. Nonetheless, she was being told that their opponent had 1,000 mythic monsters? 1,000? Feng was also surprised by this piece of news. The strongest monster tide he had come across out in the fields had only around 100 mythic monsters. That monster tide had successfully destroyed a guild city defended by several Tier 4 players. Now the enemy had 1,000 mythic monsters foe, saint monsters possessing above-average combat standards. This was undoubtedly a devastating force. That's right. There are at least 1,000 of them. Illusory Words nodded, an ugly expression appearing on her face. According to their movement speed, it'll take them around 10 hours to reach the Secret Covenant Tower. We should have enough time if we withdraw from the tower now. They didn't have any hope of defeating a force of 1,000 level 140+ mythic monsters, even if they had a guild city as support. Without a guild city for protection, their only option was to give up. After all, players killed by those faux saint monsters would suffer heavy penalties. No wonder Lu Xinglua was so confident even while retreating. It turns out he still had such a trump card hidden, Feng said in sudden realization. Chuckling, he continued, "It seems they are really desperate this time. It would have been a different story if Saint's Hand had mobilized this legion of mythic-ranked faux saint monsters in a neutral map, but it was currently moving within the Twin Towers Kingdom's borders. The kingdom would definitely mobilize its army once it noticed the faux saint monsters. A kingdom's army wasn't in existence to be trifled with. This was especially true now that the NPC population in the game had skyrocketed. Once the Twin Towers Kingdom mobilized its army, even a force of 1,000 mythic monsters would meet a tragic end. Meanwhile, this legion of mythic-ranked faux saint monsters was probably close to everything Saint's Hand had. The fact that Saint's Hand was willing to go so far probably meant that Lu Xinglua and the various superpowers had paid it an astronomical price. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. You anxiously, Fire Dance asked, "Guild leader, should we withdraw our members from the tower now?" "No." Feng shook his head. A manic gleam appearing in his eyes, he said, "Since these people wish to die, we'll fulfill their wish." When Illusory Words and Fire Dance heard Feng's words, their first thought was that he had truly gone mad. After all, he was actually still planning to engage the enemy in such a situation. A legion with 1,000 mythic-ranked faux saint monsters was something only NPCs could handle at present. It simply wasn't a force players could go up against. Guild leader Black Flame. At this time, Illusory Words suddenly thought of something, and a hint of shock flashed in her eyes. "That thing. Have you completed it?" "MHM. It's completed." Feng nodded. "However, I still need to make some final adjustments. For now, I'll have to trouble you two to gather our manpower at the tower as soon as possible. I'll meet you there." After saying so, Feng summoned the Thunder Eagle and flew straight to the Secret Covenant Tower. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.